I looked at the stack of Excel spreadsheets that had just appeared in my inbox on the company's SharePoint site and realized that I would be working until at least 6:30 p.m. This happens every month. Managers wait almost until the last moment before sending their reports, and all I can do is put the data together.
All right, let's do this. How are you? What the fuckers? What the fuck buddies? What the fuck nicks? What's happening? I'm Marc Maron. This is my podcast, WTF. Welcome to it.
Yes, I agree.
If you're just getting on board here,
some
welcome.
Of these people wait until the last second to submit reports,
curious.
like they're waiting for a
They've
miracle
been
to happen.
reading about
Sorry,
it.
I think I'll finish around 6:30 p.m. as
It's sort of still amazing to me, but not
it's
really.
Okay. That's what
just
I thought.
how
Samantha replied with
we
a sigh.
all create our
By the
own
way,
little
I've made a
bubbles,
reservation for
and
2
I
at
know
Luigi's
for
for
a
7
fact
p.m.
that
I think you could use some relaxation.
don't know who
Luigi's
I
is a small
am.
but cozy Italian restaurant that we both
in the
love.
world.
It's located next to an
That's
equally
okay.
small dance
It's
club
really
where we often
okay.
enjoyed a drink and a few slow dances before heading home and
I'd
ending
rather
the evening in
be a
bed.
little
I
below
smiled,
the
imagining a
radar.
pleasant
I'd
evening
like
with my
to
beloved
just
wife.
cruise at my
Yes, I
own
need it, I
altitude.
replied. Very thoughtful of you, dear. Around 7
I don't
then.
want to be
Yes, about
something
7,
everybody
Samantha
looks up
confirmed.
in the sky and
Bye-bye,
says,
she
oh
added before ending the
shit.
call. It seemed strange to me that she
Look
did not
at
end the
that
conversation
thing.
with her usual
No,
kind
I
words.
just kinda wanna
Then I realized that her boss,
zip
Wilson
by
Langley,
my
a
own
senior partner at the
lane,
Hempstead Law
my
Group,
own
was probably nearby.
frequency,
I looked at the
and
phone
my
for a couple of
own,
seconds, then put it back and went back to work.
altitude
I saved the
and,
tables,
and
opened my
live
main
the
document,
life.
and ran a
But,
macro that
if
did
you
most of
are
the work.
just,
It used to
checking
take
in,
hours to process the data, but
for
the
the
macro
first
created
time,
by our
welcome.
specialists
You've got a
did
lot
an
of
excellent
catching
job
up
of
to
sorting
do.
and
It's only
processing the
about
data, taking only a fraction of the time. After sipping my freshly brewed coffee, I sat back and reflected on the years that had passed and my life with Samantha as the macro carried out its task. I didn't always work in an office. In fact, until about 7 years ago, I was a federal agent working on a rather special task force, a joint public-private project. I was one of the first agents assigned to this group, reporting directly to the man at the top of the hierarchy, a family law attorney named Bill Jackson. I've worked with the best in the business. For example, with Frank Michaels and Oscar Warren. Unfortunately, Frank died in the line of duty. Oscar married the boss's daughter and is moving up the career ladder. The agency I worked for was officially called the Home Front Security Task Force and was created with one main purpose, to fight an organization called the Mutual Marital Assurance Society, or MS.
It makes me furious.
This organization was founded by a woman lawyer whose husband cheated on her. After the court made an unfair decision for her, she decided to take revenge.
But the riding
At first,
the brake
MS targeted unfaithful husbands, punishing them harshly. This group turned out to be extremely resourceful, and in those days, we mostly reacted by trying to protect men who were being set up for punishment by their wives. We called these cases interventions, and they were usually successful. Remember, when I talk about punishments, these were often something extremely cruel. More than one unsuspecting husband has died from the harsh measures used by MS operators. Many others were left with deep physical and emotional trauma. The hospital at Fort Apache, the base where our task force was located, was full of men who had suffered at the hands of MS agents. My time in the task force made me quite cynical about relationships. After seeing what many men went through because of their wives, I began to avoid anything that remotely resembled a serious relationship. So I moved from one intervention to another, doing everything I could for the men I was assigned to protect. My life changed dramatically because of a bullet wound during one of these interventions. After months of surgery and physical therapy, I was finally able to walk with the help of a cane. But my career as a federal agent was over. Being the man that he was, Bill bluntly told me that my time on the task force was over, and there were no more positions available for me. I received a medal, gratitude from a grateful nation, and a monthly disability allowance. However, Bill didn't think that was enough, so he reached out to his contacts and found me a job as Assistant Director of Operations at Iverson Security Services, or IS. IS is a national company providing security, private investigation, and armed security services to wealthy VIP clients. One of the company's clients was precisely the target group in which I served. In addition, the headquarters where I was supposed to work was in my hometown, where I had a 2-story house that I inherited from my grandparents. Glad I didn't have to move or sell my house, I gladly accepted the offer after a short interview with Jack Iverson, the company's president and founder. My job was simple compared to what I had done before. Mostly, I was moving paper from one pile to another, meeting with clients face to face to resolve any problems, or doing whatever Greg Hamilton, then who, needed. That's when I first met Samantha Green. At the time, she was an office assistant at Hempstead. Her task was to find a company that would provide security for the company's headquarters in the city center. When negotiations between our marketers and Langley began to stall, Greg sent me to sort it out. My task was either to conclude a contract or stop the endless bickering. Wilson Langley seemed impressed that IS had sent someone with my credentials to clear up the situation. I knew what kind of game he was playing like any experienced businessman. He wanted to get more services for less money. To achieve this, he dragged our marketers for weeks, making minor changes to each proposed contract.
And there's a lot more shitty people than I ever
let him know that we
imagined.
would be happy to accommodate his firm's needs.
I used to think
However,
people
our initial
were
contract is standard for all
fundamentally
clients.
or
If he has
innately
any special
decent
requirements or
or
wishes,
cared
he can
about
always
other
contact my
people,
department to make the necessary
but something's
changes, provided
broken
they
the
are legal and
brains of
reasonable.
many.
In other words,
There's
either eat the fish or take the bait.
there's a
Right,
doubling
Mr. Jacobs?
down.
He
There's
asked,
a
laughing. I shrugged before answering. You could say that, Mr. Langley, I replied. I like your candor. Well, you'll have my order, the older man stated, holding out his hand. Let your people prepare the best contract they can, and I will sign it.
Decency,
Thank you, Mr. Langley, I said, shaking his hand. We prepared a contract, and as he promised, Wilson Langley signed it. He subsequently promoted Samantha and made her his executive assistant. I was a little surprised when Samantha called me later that week to tell me about her promotion. I invited her to dinner to celebrate, and she accepted, which was the beginning of our relationship. I didn't expect it to lead to anything serious, and I was surprised to learn that she wasn't at all embarrassed by my disability. A year later, Greg retired, and Iverson promoted me to Director of Operations. I knew Greg was preparing me for this position, but I was surprised that the transition happened so quickly. It didn't take me long to settle into my new role, and I knew the extra money would come in handy. That's when I decided to open a new bank account for my disability benefits, since I no longer needed them for monthly expenses. My idea was to save money for retirement. For some reason, I never mentioned this bill to Samantha. We celebrated my promotion with dinner at Luigi's on Friday, where I proposed to her. After Samantha accepted my offer, she took me to meet her parents. I already knew that her father was Jacob Green, one of the richest men in the state, but I had never met him before. It turned out that he is also one of the most arrogant and rude people I have ever met. He looked at the cane in my left hand with obvious displeasure before extending his hand. I could almost physically feel his contempt as we shook hands. So Samantha says you were a federal agent who was wounded on duty, he said, lighting a thick cigar. It's true, I confirmed in a neutral tone. Who did you work for? To the Homeland Security Task Force, I replied. His one eyebrow rose. Never heard of them, Jacob grumbled. What were you doing there? Cleaning toilets? His contemptuous impudence was beginning to irritate me, but I knew that this was exactly what he wanted. Samantha warned me that he could be rude and abrupt, so I decided to pay him back in the same coin, but without him noticing. I can't tell you everything I did, but I can say one thing. I killed bastards, I answered calmly. His eyebrows rose sharply and his eyes widened. I smiled and continued.
This is political
those who weren't sent to jail.
On behalf
he was
of
taken
an
aback before continuing.
Government.
Looks like you missed one after all, right? He asked, pointing to my right leg. I chuckled. He really hit me in the leg, but he didn't survive our meeting. I answered with a smile. You know, I hate losing.
The average
The old man looked stunned for a moment, then his face softened, and he smiled widely. Then he laughed loudly. You got me, Mike, he said, laughing. Reminds me of myself at your age.
So I got Mike Birbiglia on the show.
Holding out his hand. But I still insist on a prenuptial agreement if you want to marry my daughter. It's nothing personal. I just want to make sure you're not after her fortune.
No hard feelings, Mr. Green, I replied, shaking his hand. Then he was on,
and I'm not against a prenuptial agreement as long as it's reasonable and fair.
He was the
Wonderful,
interviewer.
But no more, Mr. Green. Do you understand me? If you marry my daughter, you can call me daddy if you want.
He's also the director of Don't Think Twice.
He laughed and called Samantha into the living room. Everything is fine. Samantha asked as she entered the room. I think so, her father replied. You chose a good man. He has both character and courage. Much better than that last idiot you were married to. Samantha had already told me about her first husband, whom she met in college. She didn't tell the whole story, but she admitted that they were divorced.
Look,
I certainly think so,
I know it's
Samantha
me,
said,
and
approaching her
it's one
father.
of these
So you
weird
two get along now?
things
Yeah,
I
we're
have
fine,
to
aren't we, Mike?
deconstruct and
Absolutely, Dad.
live
The old
in
man
and
smiled,
figure out
looking at his daughter.
why these feelings
now
exist
go help your mother with dinner.
and what I need
We'll be
to
there soon.
act on.
Okay,
probably
Dad,
none.
she replied, kissing his cheek. After she left the room, he looked at me. Tell me something, Mike. Seriously,
with him,
did you really mean what you said about,
but he keeps
killing
coming
people?
back, folks.
Of course, I said,
he keeps
causing the blood to drain from his face.
Because,
but these were the bad guys who really deserved it.
I think
maybe you can tell me about it one day, Jacob
we
said.
like each
I'd love
other
to, Dad,
on another
but
level.
everything is
He's got a
classified, and I
special
signed a
coming out.
non-disclosure agreement.
So
he thought for a moment, then nodded slowly.
When we get
I
to
respect
it,
that, son, he finally said.
get on
the rest of our visit went quite well.
You know
when
what I
Samantha
mean?
and I left,
We
her
get
parents and I were already getting along noticeably. I think the old man needed to make sure he could respect his future son-in-law. The wedding, which took place in a large old church, was well attended. We flew to Hawaii for our honeymoon at Jacob's expense, and Samantha moved into my house after selling her apartment. Life was going well for us, at least until a few months ago. My computer beeped, bringing me back to reality. I saw a dialogue box saying that the macro had finished running. I reviewed the summary document, spot-checked the numbers to ensure they were accurate, then saved and printed the document package. Once the executive summary was completed, I put the report in a folder, closed everything, and left it on Jack's desk for him to see first thing in the morning. If it were someone else, I would have just emailed, but my boss is old school and prefers to have a hard copy to hold in his hands, and I can't blame him for that. After washing my hands and combing my hair, I put on my jacket, picked up my cane, and looked around before turning off the light.
It's a good show.
I looked at my watch and saw that it was 6:32 p.m. and
Everyone
realized
in the
that I had
cast
plenty of
is
time to
doing
buy flowers for Samantha on the way to Luigi's. I got into the car and turned on the audio system, letting the strains of Thick as a Brick fill the cabin. Okay, I like classic Jethro told to me, or sue my father if you insist. He was the one who got me hooked on Tull when I was a kid. In fact, he took me to the first concert of my life. Naturally, it was a Tull concert. We had a great time, and I still remember the other guys saying how cool it was to have a dad who loved rock music. I didn't argue because they were right. Even now, my father and I often enjoy a cigar while listening to old Tull songs. I got to the restaurant and saw that the time was 6:55 p.m., so I texted Samantha that I was already there. She said about 7, which in Samantha's language meant between 6:55 and 7:15 p.m., and I didn't see her car in the parking lot.
Stop breaking.
Was her entire answer.
And
no emojis, no sweet words. Normally
monitoring
this wouldn't bother me, but today it bothered me. Samantha has been quite cold and irritable for the past few weeks. I asked her many times what happened,
before
but
they
she
can
just
do
shrugged it
anything.
off
Get
and made
away
offhand
from the
comments.
box.
I hope that the flowers I bought would improve her mood.
WTF listeners can get the same peace of mind we get by using Simply Safe, and we wanted to make sure you get the best deal possible. 50% off a new Simply Safe system with professional monitoring, and the first month is free. Go to simplysafe.com/WTF.
She handed me the menu and poured me a glass of water before leaving. I sipped my water while looking at the menu. I already knew what I was going to order. I was just killing time waiting for my wife to arrive. The next 20 minutes passed unbearably slowly. I looked at my watch, 19:20. I looked around, but Samantha didn't appear. And then I noticed him. It was clear from his clothing and behavior that this was a court courier. I have seen many of these in my career. The manila envelope in his hands was a clear sign. I hoped that he would pass me by, but I knew in my gut that this would not happen. Michael Jacobs, he asked when he approached my table. Yes, I replied. Can I see your ID? Of course, I said, taking out my wallet and showing my driver's license. He handed me the envelope and took a photo of me on his phone. You have received the document, sir, he said. Good evening. After that, he turned around and left. I looked after him and opened the envelope. I already guessed what was in it, so I was not surprised when I saw documents with the heading Claim for Divorce. I had done nothing to deserve this, but it was consistent with Samantha's behavior over the past few weeks. She filed for divorce, accusing me of cheating, which was a blatant lie. Taking my phone out of my pocket, I texted Samantha, "What the hell?" Then I heard a woman's voice as I continued to read the lawsuit. Mr. Jacobs, I looked up and saw a rather petite blonde in a business suit standing next to my table. I turned my phone on to record video and put it back in my pocket so that the camera could capture our conversation, which I suspected would be unpleasant. It depends, I replied. Who might you be? The woman extended her hand. Allison Cartwright, Hempstead Law Group. I reached for her hand, but stopped after her next sentence. I represent your wife. I removed my hand, feeling embarrassed, and looked at the documents in front of me. Can I sit down? Free country. Help yourself.
But this woman has had a long relationship with this show.
The waitress approached us, apparently thinking that the woman across from me was part of my party of two. Are you ready to order? Asked the waitress, named Cindy, as her name tag said, holding a notepad and pen. No, I won't be long, I told Cindy. Allison turned away, and Cindy simply nodded, not expecting any other answer.
There's a whole section in this piece that I would have never really thought of about
I waited for her to leave before looking at Allison again. My client asked me to pick up the papers after you signed them. Allison continued. So your client, my soon-to-be ex-wife, asked you to pick up the papers I just received, expecting me to sign them without reading or consulting with an attorney. Do I understand correctly? Yeah, something like that, Allison answered quietly. Well, you can tell your client that she can kiss my ass. I hissed. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll go home. You will hear from my lawyer soon. Mr. Jacobs, that's impossible, Allison said. First, my client has a restraining order against you, and you cannot be within 500 feet of the marital home. Is it true? And I guess she wants to take the house. Yes, in fact, he does, and I believe that she has the right to do so. Your client told you that the house is in my name, and it always has been since I got it from my grandparents, long before our marriage. This means that it is not joint property. No, she didn't, Allison said. But you think she still has a right to it? After what you did, yes, Allison said, taking an envelope from her purse. She threw it on the table, and I looked inside, seeing a stack of photographs. I wasn't surprised to see that they showed two people having sex. I already knew that I was not one of them, and I suspected that she knew too. But Allison wasn't done. You see, Mr. Jacobs, we have photographic evidence of your infidelity, she said. We also have a video. My client has asked me to inform you that if you do not sign these papers, she will make sure that these photos and videos are sent to everyone you know, your boss, and your family and friends. This is extortion, I told her. It's a felony in this state, and the fact that you are participating in this makes you an accomplice to Samantha's crime. Allison chuckled and shrugged. Extortion is just another name for family law. Believe me, Mr. Jacobs, we can do much more with you, she replied mockingly. Seeing the expression on my face, Allison softened her tone. My client, however, is not entirely unreasonable. She is willing to let you come home to get what you need for a few days. I was asked to accompany you.
Ian McKellen
well, isn't that just damn generous of her? I said sarcastically. Allison recoiled at my words and tone, but didn't say anything. I decided to remain calm, grabbed the package with photos and divorce papers, and stood up. Follow me if you want. I didn't order anything, so I left the flowers and $20 on the table for the waitress for her troubles, and left the restaurant as quickly as my cane would allow. However, Allison had a hard time keeping up with me. I got in the car, quit the video recording app, and drove out of the parking lot, not caring if Allison was following me. I drove home and parked in front of the garage. He opened the garage door and saw the empty space where Samantha's car usually parked. Taking a deep breath, I looked at the house. Then I remembered my time on the rapid response team. I recalled many cases where unsuspecting husbands were attacked in their own homes by MS agents, force-fed, and then beaten and tortured. Is this what you have in store for me, Samantha? I asked, addressing no one in particular. Well, guess what, bitch? It won't work today. I
recommend that you read this thing,
took out my 9mm semi-automatic pistol holster, made sure there was a round in the chamber, and flipped it to my belt. When Allison parked at the curb, I got out of the car and walked towards the front door. I opened the door, but didn't open it all the way. Putting the keys back in my pocket, I took the gun out of its holster. Allison's face went white at the sight of my weapon. It's okay, I have a concealed carry permit, I told her, and I know how to handle it. That's not necessary, Mr. Jacobs, Allison muttered, not taking her eyes off the gun. I will decide for myself what is necessary and what is not. First, keep your hands visible and don't even think about reaching for anything. Give me a reason, and I will take you down so quickly that you won't even understand what happened. Do you understand? Yes, I understand, she replied. I motioned for her to go in first, pointing the gun at her. Fine, open the door, I'll follow. Allison nervously opened the door and walked into the house. I followed her, holding the pistol in my right hand and leaning on my cane with my left. My training kicked in as I quickly turned off the alarm and looked around to make sure no one was in the house. I motioned for Allison to stand in the center of the room. Throw your purse on the sofa, I ordered. After Allison complied, I told her to put her hands on her head and stay still. I nodded when I saw that she had complied with the order. And remember what I said, do everything exactly as I say, and you will get out of here safe and sound. I slowly walked around the first floor, making sure that no one else was in the house. He opened the door to the basement and turned on the light. He looked around the basement and, finding no one there, returned to the living room where Allison was standing. To the second floor, alive, I ordered. Allison started to go to her purse, but I stopped her.
So
leave it. She obeyed and walked towards the stairs. When she climbed a couple of steps, I sat down on the stair lift that I installed after I was discharged. Allison looked at me as we slowly walked up to the second floor. What are you looking for anyway? She asked. Just want to make sure you and Samantha don't leave any nasty surprises for me.
And
do you think we could do something like that? Allison asked. Happened before, I replied. After your threat at the restaurant, I'm just being cautious. We reached the top of the stairs, and I rose to my feet again. Stay here. Don't move, I said, looking around the rooms on the second floor. After making sure there was no one else in the house, I directed Allison into the master bedroom and holstered the gun. What is this? I asked, seeing a cover for clothes and a travel bag on the bed. Samantha took the liberty of packing up some of your things to speed up the process, Allison replied. I examined both bags, not knowing what to expect now. After making sure that nothing was damaged, or there were no listening devices in my things, I went into the dressing room and took out a few more things. I then moved some hangers to the side, revealing the built-in fireproof safe. I opened the outer door, making sure Allison couldn't see what I was doing, and placed my hand on the black panel inside. The scanner checked my fingerprints, and the inner door opened. I saw a stack of $100 bills and pulled them out. I decided that $10,000 would be enough to last me a while. There, I took several important documents and flipped the switch to the depths of the safe, activating the video surveillance system for the entire house. From now on, everything that happened in the house will be recorded and saved on a cloud server, every movement, every word, and both sides of every landline telephone conversation. I could watch and listen at any time, and if I wanted, I could follow everything in real time. I installed this system when I was still working in the rapid response team, and since then I have not used it. Although technology has improved since then, I knew the system would work and capture everything I needed. I closed and locked the safe, then returned to the bedroom where Allison was waiting. I put everything in a travel bag. Then he took off his wedding ring and threw it on a dresser.
And then we shot it after the second show just to have it.
Fine. I can take your bag of clothes downstairs if you want. I know you need your left hand.
I talked to my director, and I talked to
we went downstairs, and I went into my home office. I need to do something before I go. Wait here, I told her. I walked into my office, my inner sanctum. Samantha rarely came into this room, since she had her own office, but I wasn't going to take any risks. I changed the master boot password on my computer in case Samantha tried to access it. I then unplugged the external backup drive and set it aside to take with me. I flipped the switch in the closet, activating the emergency file destruction system. Like the CCTV system, it was installed during my time in the group, but has remained switched off for the past 7 years. If someone breaks in and tries to take any of my files, they will find only ashes by the time the devices finish their work. I changed the security code on the office door and double locked it, something I hadn't done in years. Taking one last look around the room, I closed the door and returned to the living room, where Allison was waiting for me. Ready now? She asked. Let's go. I replied in an even tone. I locked the front door and reactivated the alarm before closing it. Allison turned to me after placing her bag of clothes in the trunk of my car.
I know
Just so you know, your joint account is frozen. Samantha has already withdrawn her share. Don't wait too long with signatures. I hope to hear from your lawyer soon, she said. Trust me, I don't know what the hell game you and Samantha are playing, but I promise you one thing. I'll figure it out and heads will roll. Just know that you and your client have declared war on me, I hissed. Allison's face turned pale when she heard my words. You are now my enemies. You have shed first blood, and I don't like losing arguments. I headed to the city center where I knew of a hotel that offered rooms for long stays at reasonable prices.
It's a tricky joke, but it's like a good joke.
It has used this hotel many times over the years so much so that they gave us a good discount. I paid for the week in cash, figuring that by then I would be back in my home. Besides, I didn't want to make it easier for them to find me, even though I assumed I was probably being followed. The clerk looked surprised when I put out a small stack of $100 bills, but said nothing, put them in the cash register, and gave me a key card. The bellhop took my luggage and followed me to my room on the 11th floor. After I unpacked, I ordered dinner from the hotel kitchen, knowing it was open until midnight. I then took out my phone and blocked Samantha's number. I've known several divorced men who got into trouble simply for answering calls or texts. My next step was to call my boss, Jack Iverson, to tell him what happened. Damn, son, this is cruel, said old man Iverson. Listen, I'll call Alice Hawkins and try to get you to meet her tomorrow morning.
And that was,
I'll let you know
as
soon as I agree. Thanks, boss, I appreciate it.
Right. I like
Alice Hawkins is a family law attorney who hates cheaters with all her heart. About half an hour later, I received a text from Jack confirming my meeting with Alice at 9:30 a.m. He also offered me the opportunity to use our company's private investigation services at no additional cost. I agreed and sent him a message thanking him. I took out my laptop, connected it to the hotel Wi-Fi, and the first thing I did was check our joint account. He was frozen, but not before Samantha withdrew almost 80% of the funds. The joint credit cards were paid off and closed, and the joint savings account was almost empty. Luckily, all the monthly bills had already been paid. I then logged into my disability account, which was at another bank.
And my dad was
I saw that funds were still available. This confirmed my decision not to tell Samantha about this bill. Next, I logged into the video surveillance system at home and saw that 2 videos were already saved on the cloud.
But in terms of those
I opened the first one and saw Samantha and Allison entering the house. Samantha was accompanied by a man in a well-tailored suit. Interesting, I thought.
Is that
judging by the timestamp,
you managed to transcend the dark?
So how did it go? Did you sign the papers? Samantha asked as the three of them entered the living room.
No,
Allison replied. I told you that he most likely won't sign. By law, he has 30 days to respond. By the way, he didn't tell me he was armed.
But to disarm it.
Armed? You mean with comedy? Yes, Samantha.
Right?
That's what armed usually means. Allison replied
like,
sarcastically. I've never been so scared in my life, she admitted. He used to be a federal agent.
But it takes work, dude.
He was shot while on duty. That's why he has a cane. I know he has a concealed carry permit.
You have to
it's just wonderful,
find the
Allison
tone.
Said. You could have warned me in advance.
So hard.
Wait, the man intervened.
It's through repetition.
Are you saying he pulled a gun on you?
Getting comfortable with it
Allison
yourself.
Confirmed. He walked around the whole house as if he expected someone to be here. Who did he even work for?
Because you craft
No, not really. Samantha replied. Some kind of task force. He never talked much about his work. But I know he once told my father that he killed people he didn't put in prison.
I think you were actually the person that made me
Interesting. We'll have to find out. Allison said thoughtfully.
Driven by resentment.
Just wait, the man exploded. Crazy ex-federal agent with a gun. What do you think he will do when he finds out the whole truth? Calm down. He won't do anything.
I don't know. I never told you that. Like I watched one of your older specials.
But he's not stupid, and he won't know the whole truth.
Probably before
One
more
more thing,
later
Samantha.
Or something.
What?
And I saw the way
Why
you
didn't you tell me this was his house before your wedding?
And at that
I didn't think
point,
it would matter.
I wasn't
Samantha
really
replied.
looking
Why
for
do you ask?
through lines, and
Why?
there
Are you
wasn't
kidding?
really
Technically,
a
you
thread
have no right to this house in a divorce.
And then
But you said I deserve it, Samantha countered.
it's a trick.
And I mean it.
It's
but you just made my job that much harder.
I can fucking do that.
So does this mean we can frame him now? The man asked. I have a whole flash drive here with me, full of photos and videos. It only takes me a second to download this onto his computer. Then he will be behind bars before he even understands what happened. Take it away right now, Allison ordered. We are not at that stage yet. In addition, he took his external drive when he left and locked the door to his office. I think he also changed the access code to the lock.
Sometimes you have to remind people.
Give me the tire iron.
Oh yeah,
I can break down this door.
Besides,
Sam gave me the password to his computer.
So it's a
Don't even think about it. Allison said, blushing with anger. We need to be careful. Don't do anything rash.
The story that you're in.
Give me some time to think it over. I need to find out everything I can about your husband, Samantha. I have federal contracts. Let me see what they can get. In the meantime, sit quietly and don't do anything stupid.
The whole thing
do you understand me, Alan?
Your special, your new one,
but I am still senior to you.
Is basically a story.
Got it. The man answered hesitantly.
Yeah.
At least now I had his name, and I knew how far they were willing to go to set me up. But why? Allison left the house, and the video ended as Samantha and Alan walked up the stairs. The following video was filmed in the master bedroom. Alan took off his jacket and tie, throwing them on the back of my chair. Then he took off the rest of his clothes, while Samantha undressed.
It's an illusion, though, because it's not a story.
How about we get under the covers and have some fun? He asked with a sly smile. Samantha looked at him and smiled back. I don't think it can hurt, she said. This will be our bedroom after all. You should get used to it. She turned around and noticed my ring on the dresser.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Oh, look at this. Mikey left behind his wedding ring.
I've never denied
Maybe I'll
your
pawn it with the rest of his
abilities.
stuff.
That's nice.
They both laughed. She tossed the ring back onto the dresser and returned to the bed. So, which side is mine?
never
Alan
denied
asked.
your
Samantha pointed to the
abilities.
side closest
You
to
can
the
use
door.
that as a
That
blurb.
side, she said.
I'm really
Alan
good at
threw back the
blurbs.
blanket and lay down in
I tried
bed.
to be so
Samantha followed
diplomatic
him.
with Nick
It's so
Kroll
nice
about
not
his
having to
new
worry
movie
about my
that
weight bothering
he
your
kept
leg,
saying
she
that's a
said.
good,
What a pain. This was the first time I heard her complain about my leg. She usually didn't bother me unless she sat on it for too long. And even then, I never let her know. Until this moment, I thought that my injury did not interfere with her. That's it. Old Mikey is a cripple, Alan said mockingly.
It's interesting.
And by the way, I'm in excellent shape. Give me your body. Samantha giggled. Now have sex with me. Make me your woman. Let's make me a baby. Are you still taking pills? He asked, moving inside.
That's the
No,
job.
I stopped taking them today.
I actually think
Samantha
that's the
replied.
job of being
This was
a
news to me.
comic.
I didn't even know she was taking them.
Is
She
you
knew
make
I had a
people
low
laugh.
chance of having children,
Making
which
people
several
laugh
doctors
is
said was a
baseline,
congenital
right?
condition.
Yeah.
But we
Making
discussed
people
it,
laugh
and
at
Samantha
something
never
they're
seemed to worry
sad
about it.
about.
It just meant that the chances of me becoming a father were lower.
Well,
Then
it's
get ready to get
essential,
pregnant, Alan said.
or
I stopped the
angry
video,
about, or
unable to
whatever.
watch any
Like,
further.
I
I started to
think
feel
on
sick
one,
and ran
for
to the
me,
bathroom.
comedy will
After
work
emptying my stomach
to
into the toilet, I
look
washed
at
my
things
face and counted to
differently.
10,
I think
taking
that's
deep breaths.
another thing.
I couldn't believe it.
Agree.
The only woman
Outside
I've
the
ever truly
sadness
loved
is
mocked
to
our
sort
wedding
of, like,
vows, and she did it
turn
in the
the
bed we
lens.
shared for the past
Like, I
few
never
years.
thought about
I began
it
to
like
wonder
that.
if I even knew her. Once I collected myself,
the
I returned to the room
elevation
and looked through the
to
photos
actually
Allison had given
provide
me.
some sort
All
of
photos had the date and time in the lower right
humanity
corner,
and
as well as the
relief
location,
to
Dallas,
things that are
Texas.
really not
Returning to my laptop,
discussed.
I opened my
Like, I
calendar.
think the
On the
whole,
same dates that,
like,
judging by the photographs, I was
approaching
supposedly in
grief,
Dallas. I
which
was in
is something
Seattle.
everybody
This meant that I also
deals
had
with.
receipts for all expenses for that
Nobody
period.
likes to talk
I thought that
about
this
it,
would be enough to
and
prove that
nobody
it was not
wants
me in
it in
these
their
pictures.
life.
I took a closer look at the photographs and noticed that there were no clear shots of the man's face.
It's going to
Interesting, I thought.
happen.
Then it dawned on me.
So
The two
to
pictures
get
showed the
into
man's
that
right thigh,
zone
and there were no scars on it.
and to
I could easily
disarm
prove
it
that all
and
these
to
photographs were
open
fake.
up a
But why?
conversation
If
about
only,
it,
damn
I
it, I
think
thought.
is definitely
Samantha planned to use the
proactive.
prenuptial agreement to rob
And
me
it's
of my
good,
divorce
and
and cover up her
it should be a
infidelity.
purpose of
According to the
comedy. I
contract drawn
think
up by her father, adultery
like
meant that the
Pryor
guilty
used
party
to
would
do
leave the
that,
marriage with only what they
like
brought
in
into
the
it
sense
without any
of,
support.
you know,
I carefully
talking
studied
about
the divorce
you're
papers and realized that
volunteering
Samantha
your
had gone much
insane
further
life.
than the prenuptial agreement provided.
right.
She wanted not only my house, but also 80% of all joint assets, 75% of my retirement fund, and a huge alimony payment. I knew she would never get that much in court, which explained why Allison insisted that I sign the papers without looking. I wanted to find out who this Alan was. I assumed he worked for Samantha's law firm, so I went to their website. Sure enough, I found him Alan Williams, a junior partner who had joined the firm after moving from New York a few months ago. I decided that our detectives should check his background. Since it was almost 11:30 p.m., I turned off my laptop and was about to go to bed when suddenly my phone rang. It was Jacob Green, Samantha's father. I was surprised that he was calling so late, but I decided to answer anyway. Mike, this is Jake Green. How are you, guy? He asked in his usual rude tone. Honestly, it's been better, Dad. I replied. Of course. I was at the club with Langley, and he said you and Sam were getting a divorce. Jacob said. Imagine my surprise when he asked me how I reacted to the news of my daughter's divorce. I tried to call Samantha, but her phone went straight to voicemail.
Yeah, that's true.
What's going on there?
So I think that's the bigger
This evening, she handed me the papers. She claims that I cheated on her. Did you do it, boy? Jacob asked sternly. It was his style, directness, and clarity. That was one of the qualities I respected in him. Hell no,
if you're saying that to yourself,
what? You want to say that she cheated on you, but she claims that you did it.
Yeah, and that's right, Dad.
Do you have proof?
Yeah.
Of course. Do you want to see for yourself? I asked. Of course I want to. Where are you now?
They can't even talk about the world because they don't know if it's like
the verification.
Open up some,
I'll be there in half an hour. I don't care how late it is. I want to see this so-called evidence.
Anger on someone in their life.
We ended the call, and I got everything ready to show it off.
But
after that, I made a small pot of coffee, knowing that he would want a cup. After a while, I heard a knock on the door. Taking the gun, I looked through the peephole. After making sure it was Jake and that he was alone, I opened the door slightly. It's just me, son. There is no one else, he said. I took off the chain and opened the door, although the pistol remained at hand. Come on in, I told him. He walked in and his eyes widened when he noticed the gun. Damn it, are you expecting trouble? He asked in shock.
Annoys me for whatever reason. It's not their
closing and locking the door.
Eventually,
I get She makes me nervous, Jake said. I made the weapon safe and holstered it, leaving it nearby. Would you like some coffee before we start? I suggested, handing him a paper cup. Jake shrugged and took it. To hell with it, he replied. I poured us both a cup and we sat down. Are you sure this is coffee? He asked after a careful sip. It says so on the package. I replied, making him laugh. Show me what you've got, he finally said. I gave him the photos Allison gave me.
For me,
Jake
it's
studied
over.
them carefully, frowning.
But whatever you've done to the other person,
what do you think?
Who knows how long that'll go?
Well, that guy in the photo kind of looks like you. But whoever he is, it's not you. Why are you so sure? First of all, I saw you in swimming trunks. This guy doesn't have a scar on his right thigh, Jake said.
As long as I hurt your feelings for a second.
He looks like he's putting all his weight on his right knee. I've never seen you do that. I couldn't help but smile.
I think that's
right. Since I was injured, I have never put any full weight on that.
But isn't that rageaholic?
One more thing, I added. Look at the date and time on the photos.
I used to rage.
This took place in Dallas, but I was in Seattle recently, and I have the receipts to prove it.
I think think
interesting.
You know what happens is
you said you had proof Samantha was cheating. I want to see them.
I feel like
this is quite graphic, Dad. I warned, but he waved it off.
Problem
I'm a grown man, son. Nothing will surprise me anymore.
So I guess it's rageholic in the sense that, like,
this was taken this evening after I left home. I said as I started the video. Jake watched intently, brow furrowed, as the recordings continued.
Or don't deal with that.
I showed him the live cameras. Samantha and Alan slept in my bed naked with their arms and legs wrapped around each other.
Like, what are they going to do? Like,
turn it
let
off,
me fix
please.
that.
I closed the video and closed the laptop lid. Well, I asked. I believe you, son. He said quietly. He looked thoughtful, then looked at me. Do you think this has something to do with your work on the task force? This thought occurred to me, and his question seemed interesting to me, so I decided to listen to his reasons. What makes you think that? I asked, watching him carefully choose his words. I wasn't completely honest with you, son. Please understand, like you, I took an oath of non-disclosure. I understand, Dad, I assured him. I know all about the task force, he said quietly. I also know about this Mia's gang. Mia's, or Mutual Marital Assistance Society, was a radical group created by a female lawyer who sought to punish cheating husbands.
At the end of the special,
her lust for power went much further than this goal. Can you explain this to me a little more, Dad? I asked quietly. He sighed heavily before continuing. Trudy is not Samantha's birth mother, but she is the only mother Sam has ever really known. He began. I knew Trudy was Jake's second wife, but I never asked questions, figuring he would tell me if he wanted. And so he began. Sam's birth mother, Patricia, abandoned us when she was just a girl.
I feel like that was true.
I'm sorry to hear that, I said. He shook his head. It's not worth it. Patricia, that was her name, contacted the very woman who founded Maze. She wanted me to finance their project. Thought I would support her given my charitable and political donations. I met this woman, Mona Larson.
She was one of the great people.
Naturally, I refused. I understood her pain, but I could never approve of what she wanted to do. But Patricia not only approved of her plans, but also wanted to help so much that she left us for this. I hired Bill Jackson to handle my divorce. She took her maiden name Witherspoon and moved to Washington to work with Mona.
Oh, what was my last interaction?
Wait, did you say Witherspoon? I asked. Yes, he said. And what? Jake was surprised. I remember hearing about someone named Pat Witherspoon who died in custody a few months before I was shot.
Marc doesn't like me. I don't want to do it.
Yes, he answered quietly.
I would do anything for you, Lynn, but Marc doesn't like me. It just feels toxic.
It was none of my business.
In hindsight,
it doesn't matter anymore.
I should have just gone.
By that time, I had long since married Trudy.
I love Lynn. I'm going to put this behind me.
I know how to deal with Marc. I know that Mia has a habit of taking revenge on former agents. This is their way of payback.
Yeah,
that's why I asked if you thought they had anything to do with it.
That's the thing is like,
I had this thought, but I was sure that the Mia's corporate structure was destroyed. Technically, yes, but a lot of their former agents and operatives are still being caught. Jake said. A couple of former contractors were recently arrested. Damn it, I said. I didn't hear it, but I wasn't in a position where I needed to know about it. So tell me, Dad, how do you know all this? After Patricia left us, I filed for divorce. Bill Jackson was still practicing family law and took my case. When I told him what happened, he said he had already heard something about Larson and her group. Jake said. He gave me a crazy idea. I listened to it and I liked it. We started working on its implementation.
Everything is good.
We created a council,
really
planned
think
everything.
It's really just
hell, I even secured the financing to buy out the old army base you call Fort Apache. I also lobbied Congress to get federal support. You know the rest yourself, he said. So when we first met, you already knew about me, I suggested. I knew everything about you, son.
I completely think you're a great comic,
including your reputation as a tough guy who doesn't take bribes and doesn't let anyone bully you. So you just decided to make fun of me on the day we first met. I joked. Jake smiled and nodded. This is what I do best, son.
I know you know John Stewart.
Besides, I wanted to make sure for myself that the rumors about you were true.
No,
so what are you planning to do now?
It's probably
tomorrow morning I have a meeting with a lawyer. I'm going to remove the restraining order and then evict Samantha from my house.
And probably, Edelman's on the list.
Did she get a restraining order?
Yes.
Can you believe it? Then I'm going to countersue based on her infidelity. And I intend to invoke the prenuptial agreement you forced us to sign. If things go my way, someone will end up behind bars. Behind bars, Jake asked. Last time I checked, attempted extortion, conspiracy, and perjury are still crimes, as well as fabrication of evidence. All this is still illegal. Jake laughed. Good luck. But do me one small favor if you can, please.
You're dispelling that?
Which? I know that you have to do what you think is right, but try not to hurt my girl too much. Okay,
I have been an abusive,
I understood what he meant and nodded to let him know that I respected that.
You feel like
I'll do my
that's
best,
behind
I told him. But I have questions.
The abusive and raging part, yes.
What can you tell me about Samantha's first husband? I asked. I never asked Samantha this question, thinking it was in the past. Jake sighed heavily and nodded. His name is Alvin Morrison. He's an accountant. Last I heard, he works for a financial company downtown. He and Sam met in college and married after graduation. Seemed like a pretty decent guy, although a little weak-willed, to be honest.
I don't think
what's happened? Sam says he cheated on her. Jake replied. She kicked him out the door and filed for divorce under a prenuptial agreement. After that, I didn't hear anything from him. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I noticed. Jake's eyes widened and he raised his eyebrows. Now that you say it, yes, it really does look like it.
For a few minutes,
do you think she could have set him up too? I don't know until I find out, but it definitely looks possible, doesn't it? I guess so, Jake said thoughtfully.
So if you're putting me on the spectrum of rageaholic,
I'm just thinking out loud, but it definitely needs to be checked. I agree, Dad says, getting up to leave. Keep me posted if it's not too much trouble. We'll see, Dad, I answered sadly.
But
he seemed to understand, but I noticed that he was slightly disappointed with his daughter. We shook hands and I walked into the door. Before leaving, he turned to me. I'm sorry, son, Dad said quietly. It was the first time I'd heard him apologize for anything, and I knew it didn't come easy for him. You're a good person, and you don't deserve any of this. I appreciate it, Dad. Apology accepted.
10 years.
One more request, son. Stay in touch, okay?
Of
course, I replied. To my surprise, he hugged me like a father hugs his son and left. I closed the door, returned to bed, covered myself with the blanket, and fell asleep. The next day, I got up earlier than usual, cleaned myself up, got dressed, and packed my things for the day.
then there's the other thing that I conflict with. You can always watch the recordings later.
After grabbing a light breakfast and a fresh caramel mochaccino, I headed into the office to the classic tunes of Jethro Tull. When I arrived, my boss, Jack Iverson, CEO of Iverson Security Services, waved me over to his office. I spotted Terry Torres, Chief of Investigations, in his office. I went to Jack's corner office. Good morning, Mike. Jack said. I wasn't expecting you before I met Alice. I couldn't sleep, so I decided to come early. I explained. I understand. Jack replied. I took the liberty of bringing Terry up to speed. I hope you don't mind.
Great moments.
Not at all. In fact, I have a few leads that might be useful.
Oh, yeah.
Is it true? Terry asked. I found out last night that the person Samantha is cheating on me with is Alan Williams, a partner at Hempstead Law Group. I couldn't print a photo of it, but it's on their website. If that doesn't work, you can Google asshole. Maybe you'll find his photo there.
I wish I knew more about that place.
Anything else?
Like
Terry asked.
Yes.
Try to find Alvin Morrison. I believe he works for one of the financial companies in town. I said. And who is he exactly? Terry clarified. He is Samantha's first husband. I want to know everything about their divorce.
You know what I mean?
It should be in the public domain, so it won't be hard to find. And check where he works.
No one's done this.
If he's in town, it should be easy.
No one's touched trampoline parks for kids.
Mike, what are your plans? I want to talk to him about his divorce. I have a feeling this isn't the first time Samantha has played games like this. I said. Terry nodded, taking notes. One more thing. I need to know everything about these photographs. I gave Terry one of the photos that Allison gave me yesterday. Damn, Mike, you want a lot, Terry said sarcastically, looking at the photo. Jack glanced at the photo as Terry handed it to him.
I can't stand that.
You weren't even in Dallas when this photo was taken, Jack noted. If, of course, the date in the photo is correct. No, I wasn't there. I confirmed. The photo might take a while, but the rest I'll try to have answers by the end of the day, Terry assured. Don't worry, Mike. I have entrusted this to my best people, and will pass on to you and Alice everything we find. Thanks, Terry. I appreciate it. I said. I am indebted to you. He smiled.
On your Instagram,
treat me a cold beer, and we'll be even.
Is that
well? I'll go.
There are people that don't know that
Thanks,
they've
Terry,
glommed
Jack said, and I repeated. Jack motioned for me to close the door.
And it's
he
just
looked
out
worried
there.
before speaking.
And
Do you think
now
this could be an MS renegade operation, Mike? You know how they feel about revenge. He said. I don't know, Jack.
So all of a sudden I
thought
see
so
one of my
first,
jokes
but now I'm not sure. Although I learned one interesting detail.
Or all of it.
Which one? Asked Jack.
And I have to
Samantha's
be like,
birth mother is Pat Witherspoon, one of MAS's top field agents.
Yeah, that's your
joke. This is interesting. She's been dead for a long time, as far as I know. Do you know what I'll do? I'll contact Bill Jackson and Oscar Warren and see if they've heard anything.
What do I do?
Oscar is in charge now at Fort Apache, Jack said.
Yeah, I heard that too. I had someone come up to me in the cellar.
You have a good team that will support you in this matter. Let them do the hard work. You take a break, go fishing or something else. Jack advised anxiously. Thanks, Jack, but I can't sit idly by while Samantha ruins my life.
One of my jokes.
I understand how you feel, Mike. True, I understand. But maybe you should leave that to others. You are no longer a field agent.
And it was almost word for word.
But I can't just sit and do nothing. I'm not one to do that.
I said,
no, you're not, and that's what I respect about you. But you're not in the best shape right now, Mike. Jack said, "We got your back. Take a little vacation anyway. You deserve it. As soon as we find out something, you will be the first person we tell." I looked closely at Jack and realized that he was almost ordering me to take a break. The professional side of me realized that he was right. I really need some rest and relaxation. And he's right. I have a great team behind me. After thinking about it, I nodded in agreement. You're right, Jack. I finally said, "I just need to pick up something from my desk before meeting Alice." There are some areas of observation that are pretty commonplace. And keep you posted.
I will do so. It's like, but if you have a unique twist on it that you know is yours.
Then I copied the 2 videos I had downloaded onto a flash drive, set up an automatic reply for email, packed my things, and headed out. On the way out, I noticed Jack smile and nod at me. I responded with a smile and left. I got to the building where Alice Hawkins worked, parked, and went inside. I arrived 15 minutes early, but I knew Alice wouldn't mind. I checked in with the secretary, who directed me to the waiting area. A few minutes later, I was led into Alice's office. Good morning, Mr. Jacobs, Alice said, holding out her hand. Mr. Iverson said you would come today. Would you like to get coffee? There's a great caramel mochaccino on the ground floor. That would be wonderful, Miss Hawkins. I replied, please. I took out the money, but Alice stopped me. My account. Sally, could you run after us? 2 large caramel mochachinos and get yourself something.
Because if you talk about yourself, no one can steal your joke.
Of course, Miss Hawkins. Thank you, replied the pretty young secretary, accepting the money. When Sally left, Alice pointed to a chair opposite her desk, and I sat down. Mr. Iverson said that you had been notified that you were filing for divorce. Alice began. That's true, Miss Hawkins. I replied. Please call me Alice. Do you have these papers with you? Yes, I said, opening my case. I took out the envelope and handed it to her. Alice looked through the documents, frowning. When she finished, she put the papers aside and looked at me with anger. The allegations here are quite serious, she finally said through clenched teeth. Is there evidence of infidelity? Because if there is, you should know that I do not represent the interests of cheaters. There is evidence, but it does not compromise me in any way. If you are interested, I can show them. If not, I'll find someone more objective to handle my case. I answered harshly. She was a little confused by my words. Of course, Mr. Jacobs, show me, she said. I handed her the envelope with photographs and watched intently as her eyes widened as she looked through them. When she finished, she shook her head and looked at me. Can you refute this? She asked.
No, I don't.
I replied, standing up with the help of my cane. Alice looked shocked as I unbuckled my belt and lowered my pants. Mr. Jacobs, please. This is completely unnecessary. Alice tried to stop me. I'll decide what's necessary. I growled. Her eyes dropped to my right leg, now bare.
I'm doing
Oh my God,
great.
she gasped in amazement. I almost lost this leg while serving my country. Spent months in the hospital undergoing surgeries and rehabilitation to learn to walk again.
I have the struggles.
I still can't lean on that knee like the person in these photos. Do you believe me now, Miss Hawkins, or should I go to someone else?
Yeah.
Are you saying these photos are fabricated? She asked. I'm not saying anything, Miss Hawkins. I'm telling you straight, these photos are fake. Additionally, I have expense reports and receipts to prove that I was in Seattle, Washington when these photos were taken.
I'm good. And then I'm able to make comedy specials from them.
So tell me, will you take my case or should I leave?
What else
I'll
could
take your
you
case,
want?
Mr. Jacobs,
Great.
she finally said,
I'm
handing back the
grateful.
photographs.
That's good.
Now,
so
please
I don't
put
want
your
to see
pants
someone
on.
crib a
I
joke,
pulled up
or
my
maybe
pants
they
and
don't
buckled
realize
my
they
belt
crib a joke.
just as Sally returned with our coffees. She looked a little embarrassed.
Here's what
Everything is
happened
fine,
in the
she
two
asked.
cases.
Just proved my
for
point.
me.
It's okay, I said, sitting down.
Is
Sally
someone
looked at
brought
Alice
to
for
my attention
confirmation.
that there
It's
was
okay,
this
Sally.
kid doing
Thank
a
you,
joke
Alice
I
said,
did
accepting the change for her
literally
coffee.
in
Sally smiled and left the office. Alice looked at me as she took a sip of her coffee. I apologize for the doubt, Mr. Jacobs. I hope we don't have to go through this again. Call me Mike, and the apology is accepted. Hopefully, I won't have to take my pants off again in the courtroom, but I will if I have to, I said with a smile. Alice responded with a slight smile. It seems your reputation precedes you, Mike. And no, I don't think it will come to that. But to be fair, it's nice to know that you're willing to go all the way if necessary. What else do you have for me?
I don't care.
I took out my phone and showed her the video of my conversation with Allison. She frowned at the recording, then handed the phone back to me. So your wife hired Allison Cartwright.
Like, yeah, it's a Marc Maron
She has a very
joke,
mixed reputation.
That might
Judging by
happen,
this video, ethics is clearly not her strong suit.
That's nice.
I would like a copy of this video. It will come in handy when I file a complaint against her. A complaint?
But the other thing,
this video demonstrates several ethical violations and at least one possible criminal offense.
And it was sort of
in
the
addition,
same
she accompanied you to your home without a police escort, which is extremely unusual. What else do you have?
If somebody
I handed
has
her a flash drive with 2 videos that I took from my CCTV system. Alice watched both videos and a satisfied smile appeared on her face.
That becomes a more difficult
more fodder for my complaint, Alice said.
It's funny,
what about
like,
you pointing a gun at Miss Cartwright? Did you actually threaten a court official with a weapon?
And that was a great conversation.
Why? Alice
and you
asked.
talked to him
She
about
nodded as I explained my experiences on the task force.
It was very
Did you suspect that your wife or Miss Cartwright might be preparing an ambush to set you up or attack you?
In my opinion,
something like that.
He had not intended.
Actually, I've been shot once before in a similar situation.
But that he,
I understand.
in some ways, was a
Luckily, Mike, I'm familiar with the task force and some of the mass tactics.
Yeah,
I have represented many men who have been helped by your group. I'm sure Miss Cartwright will try to use this against you. Don't worry, I'll sort it out. Thank you, I said. So let's clarify. The house you lived in with Samantha belongs to you, right? Yes, I got it from my grandparents long before I met Samantha. I explained. What about your bank accounts? Samantha took 80% out of our accounts and Allison froze them. Alice looked dumbfounded. She froze the accounts after how your wife withdrew 80%.
He came up to me after
the show. That's right, I confirmed. There was no real reason for this other than outright vindictiveness and an attempt to stop you from hiring the lawyer. Alice said, why are they doing this to you?
He's riffing on it.
That lawyer is the $64,000 question, isn't it?
That's like one step away from.
I hope your company's investigation will provide answers.
No, I get
Alice
it.
said. Mr. Iverson informed me that Mr. Torres was working on the case. I'm looking forward to the results.
I remember one time Mulaney, when he was writing on SNL.
First of all, I need to get the restraining order lifted and get you back into your home. I will then work on recovering your assets.
Did you ever do
in the meantime, I will prepare a response to this lawsuit with our own lawsuit. Do you have a copy of your prenuptial agreement?
Yeah.
It was
yes, here it is. I said, taking it out of the case. Alice looked through it, set it aside, and handed me the checklist. It will take me a couple of days to figure everything out. Try to complete the items on this list. Are you provided with funds until we return the money to your account?
But he had written it.
Yes, I can handle it.
He had written it.
Okay, Mike, from now on, I will take over everything.
You can use it.
You don't need to be told not to do anything stupid, but I'll say it anyway.
But I do think there is a degree where
don't worry, Alice. I replied with a slight laugh.
We're doing all these brain exercises as comedians.
For now, your cheating wife just filed for divorce, falsely accused you of adultery based on fabricated evidence, kicked you out of your home, stole a significant amount of money, and is trying to take most of your assets. And this is just the beginning. But we will fix all this.
Real. And like
we
when I did this
contact
special, I had
ended
this
the meeting. On the way out, I stopped at Sally's desk and made a large down payment. Then I walked away feeling like I was in control again.
Not that
I went for lunch and got a call while I was eating a burger. It was Jack. How did it go with Alice? He asked.
Yeah, so
everything is fine, I replied. Hopefully there will be some action soon. Great, Jack said. I spoke to Bill and Oscar. They haven't heard anything yet, but Oscar said he'll come see you this afternoon or evening. I think he'll want some information. I told him where you live now. No problem. I'm sure he wants to know the details. I said. Anything else? Terry has some information. He emailed you a summary. I don't want to say too much on the phone, but I will say one thing. It turns out that Miss Cartwright also handled Samantha's first divorce. Interesting, I remarked. I thought you'd say that, Jack replied. By the way, I can hear the TV in the background.
That's a good joke.
Are you at the new sports bar?
It kills.
Yes,
and doesn't it like when someone gives you a tag and it really works well, don't you ever get that moment where you're like, fuck,
and I'm not expecting you at the office tomorrow, understand?
How is he just so good at that?
I replied.
Totally.
Fine. By the way, a great report for the month. It looks like things are getting better in the West. Thanks, I noticed that too.
We just work out
jokes. Okay, I'll let you go.
But I think you'd like it.
We ended the conversation
and I went back to my burger.
I was almost finished eating when the phone vibrated. A message came from Terry. Alvin Morrison, financial advisor, Tri-States Financial Services, followed by an address and phone number. I thanked him, to which I almost immediately received an answer. There will be more. Wait, I'll send it by email.
Everyone can love joke.
I replied, it's fast.
It's a catch.
We are the best, boss. He replied. I liked him back and called Alvin's number. To my surprise, he answered on the first ring. Welcome to Tri-States Financial Services, the best services for your financial future. I'm Alvin Morrison. How can I help? For a moment, I was taken aback. At first, I thought it was an answering machine, but I soon realized that I was talking to a real person. Hello, my name is Mike Jacobs.
And the thing
I would like to meet you as soon as possible. I replied.
But literally,
of course,
3
Mr.
days
Jacobs,
before the special,
I'll be glad to meet you. Alvin replied. I just have free time at 13 o'clock. Will this suit you? I looked at my watch. This gave me about an hour if I finish my burger in the next 10 to 15 minutes.
It's from the
Yes, that's perfect. See you at 1 o'clock.
Most of my stuff is.
That's like the
looking forward to meeting you, Mr. Jacobs. He responded enthusiastically before we ended the call. I quickly Googled how much consultants of Alvin's caliber typically charge per hour and made a mental note. I had no intention of purchasing his services right now, but decided that I would compensate him for his time and any information he provided. After finishing lunch, I hit the road. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I heard a line from an old Jethro Tull song playing in my car. The witch's promise was coming true. Believing he listened while you flew away laughing. You're damn right, Ian, I said to no one in particular. Finally, I got to the building where Alvin worked, parked the car, and went inside. I introduced myself to the secretary, and she showed me to Alvin's office. I saw a rather tall, thin man, several years younger than me, wearing a business suit, white shirt, and tie. He smiled, stood up, and extended his hand to me. Good afternoon, Mr. Jacobs. He greeted. Would you like a cup of coffee?
Where the hell is that come from?
Of course, I answered, sitting down. The secretary asked how I preferred my coffee. Walked out, and returned a few minutes later with a steaming mug.
But it didn't come from your brain sitting there going,
drink quite worthy. So, Mr. Jacobs, how can I help you today?
That's right.
Are you looking to invest or perhaps start a retirement portfolio? We have the best deals on the market, and I can guarantee a good return on your investment. Alvin said happily, still smiling. I thought that the smile seemed to be glued to his face. I saw you there at the cellar. Please call me Mike, I said, trying to win over before getting to the real reason for my visit. Okay, Mike, you can call me Alvin, he answered, still smiling. Thanks, Alvin, I replied, almost feeling guilty for what I was about to do. Sorry, but I didn't come to buy your products. I'm here to talk about your divorce from Samantha Green. Alvin's smile disappeared and his face darkened. Sorry, Mr. Jacobs, but this is not discussed. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave. Alvin growled. I pulled a small wad of $100 bills out of my pocket and counted out 3 bills, noticing his eyes widen. I understand that this is a sensitive topic for you, Alvin. I am willing to compensate you for your time and any information you can share. As far as I know, financial advisors in this area make about $40 an hour. I'm willing to pay you $300 at the same time, I said, holding $300 bills in my hand. I noticed him looking at the money as he considered my proposal. Then his demeanor softened. That's very generous of you, Mike, he finally said. Just one question before I decide whether to accept your offer. Whatever, I answered. Are you a private detective or a law enforcement officer?
The one thing I didn't know about watching this special,
I used to work as a federal agent, but that was a long time ago. Before this happened, I said, pointing to my leg. He looked at my leg and came, and then nodded. Okay, he said, I accept your offer. I gave him the money. Thank you. Please. Do you mind if I record our conversation? I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I don't mind. He shrugged. I took out my phone and launched the voice recorder app. Interview with Alvin Morrison. I said into the microphone, indicating the date and time. So, Alvin, what can you tell me? Actually, not that much, he began. I met Samantha in college. We had a few classes together, and I liked her. We started dating and fell in love. Everything is as usual. We got married right after graduating from college. She introduced me to her father. Jacob Green, I asked. Yes, that's him. He hated me from the very beginning. I knew he was rich, but I didn't think he could be so rude. Quite a rude guy, to be honest. I grinned. In general, everything went well for about 5 years. We talked about having children, buying a house. In general, everything that young couples talk about. One day, I returned home from work and saw her in the kitchen with another woman. At first, I thought it was her friend from the law office where she worked. Is this Hempstead? I asked. Alvin nodded. Yes, that's right. So I went into the kitchen and said hello. Another woman handed me an envelope and told me I was notified. I opened it and saw that Samantha was accusing me of cheating. Have you ever cheated on her? No, never. I love Samantha with all my heart. I know I'm not the most attractive guy or the strongest, but I loved her and would never do anything to hurt her. It's clear. Did they have evidence of this alleged betrayal? I asked. The other woman, as I later found out, was Samantha's lawyer. She handed me another smaller envelope with photographs. She stated that she had even more evidence, as well as a video. She threatened to send them to my friends, family, and even co-workers if I didn't sign the documents right away. Of course, I refused to sign them until I consulted with a lawyer. Samantha also had a restraining order and stated that I had to leave immediately. She already had a lot of my things collected. The lawyer warned me that she had other evidence against me and threatened to use it if I did not comply. I left and tried to get a motel room, but found that my cards weren't working. It was then that I learned that Samantha had completely emptied our accounts. We had over $100,000 in savings, but it was all gone. I ended up staying with my parents.
It's funny,
they lent me money so I could hire a lawyer, but he was completely useless. I went back to the condo to get some more of my things and tried to talk to Samantha. I forgot about the restraining order. Anyway, when I walked in, she was in bed with some guy. I couldn't stand it and went at him, but he turned out to be much larger than me. I was taken to the hospital by ambulance. When I woke up, I found myself handcuffed to the bed. I was informed that I was under arrest for violating a restraining order and for possession of prohibited videos. After being discharged from the hospital, I was taken to prison. The detective working the case found out that the images on my phone were uploaded there after I lost consciousness. Therefore, the charges were dropped. But the damage had already been done. I was fired from my job, and my life basically went downhill. What about the charge of violating a restraining order?
Don't know that.
It turned out that this was also a falsification. There was no restraining order, and the paper that Samantha's lawyer gave me was not filed with the court. But it didn't matter. I still spent the weekend in jail. Alvin spat bitterly.
I mean, they had whole lives before you. They had lives outside of you.
By the time it was over, I had nothing left.
They have people in their lives.
Without a job, but still had to pay maintenance and a mortgage on the condominium.
My joke about
I took on any job just to stay afloat. I ended up getting a job here, and I'm only now starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Do you still have the photographs they gave you with evidence of your alleged betrayal? I asked. Yes, I have them, Alvin said, opening his briefcase. He took out a small, tattered envelope and handed it to me. Do you keep them in your briefcase? I was surprised. I still live with my parents, and I would be ashamed if they ever saw them. I keep wanting to throw them away, so I just can't get around to it. I nodded understandingly, and then looked at the photographs. What I saw shocked me. The backgrounds and poses in the photos were exactly the same as the photos Allison gave me. Even the woman in the photographs seemed the same. Only two things were different. The date and time of the shooting, and also the fact that the man in these photographs looked shorter and thinner. In all other respects, the photographs were identical. Do you mind if I leave them for a while? I know someone who can analyze these photographs.
How is he?
You can keep them. I don't care, Alvin said.
He's in rough shape.
I replied. Tell me, have you thought about filing a lawsuit against your ex-wife and her lawyer? I spoke to several lawyers, but they said they couldn't do anything. Apparently, I don't earn enough for their interest. It's clear. How are you coping now? I was on the edge for a long time.
15
I haven't
months
even dated a
ago,
woman since
it was
all this happened.
really
As you can guess,
extreme.
I have major trust
He's
issues,
almost
and I'm still paying off my debt.
6 or
At least you
7
don't have to pay
times.
child support
You
or the
know,
mortgage on that
where
condo
we took him-
anymore.
like,
I said,
we
trying
was
to
at
give
the
him some
hospital
hope.
last
My statement
week,
caused Alvin to look shocked
wasn't
and confused.
eating,
What are you talking
was
about?
throwing
He asked.
up, all
I've been
this-
paying
yeah,
for almost
awful stuff,
$3,000 a month
awful.
for almost
And
8
so I was
years
talking
now
to
in
them
child
yesterday,
support
they-
and a
they
mortgage
haven't
on a
seen the
condominium that I no
special,
longer live in.
you know.
I have a little over 2 years left
And-
on child support
but then
payments
their
and another
neighbors
18 years on my
started
mortgage.
telling them, "Oh,
Didn't
we
they tell
saw
you that
Mike's
Samantha remarried
special
about
and
6
it's
years ago
beautiful and it's a
and that she
love
sold their
letter
condo around the
meant
same
to
time?"
you
I asked.
and-
Yeah.
No,
But
Alvin
they're
stated
like,
firmly,
but
shaking
it's
his
also
head. Nobody told me anything.
challenging. You know what I mean?
Samantha's
Like,
lawyer
so-
arranged for
so
an
they
automatic
kinda
transfer
have
of
a
money
good
from my salary to her account.
doctor.
I quickly figured out in my head that Samantha owed this poor
They
guy
had
a little
they
over
had a kind of
$210,000.
vibe
Another question
of
came
what
up,
the
and I
special
realized
was
that Terry would have to look into
yesterday on the
Samantha's
phone.
financial records.
And
She must
I
have an account
go,
somewhere with a huge amount of money. She may
I
have
go,
shared the money
Vince,
she extorted from
my
Alvin with
friend,
Allison.
Vince and
Can you
MJ.
contact
You
your
do?
company's
Yeah.
HR department
I
and
go,
ask them to
Vince, I
provide
think
information
you
about where the money is
would,
being transferred? I asked.
I think you'll
I'll ask,
like it,
Alvin
but
replied.
it is
What if they refuse?
challenging,
Then I will ask my lawyer to file a subpoena to
and
obtain this
it's about
information.
your- some
Something
of it's
about this
about
case
your
is very
stroke and-
suspicious.
and-
I'm no
and
lawyer,
my
Alvin,
dad
but I think you have a strong
on
case against your
speakerphone
ex-wife and her lawyer.
I don't
How do you know
like
this?
the
Alvin
personal
asked.
stuff.
Because
Yeah.
Samantha did
And
something
I
very
go,
similar to me
Vince,
just yesterday. I replied,
don't much.
"Are you ready
I
to
go,
testify
you
to this in court?"
can't-
Absolutely,
you can't
Alvin said
choose what
decisively.
your
"Do you
child's
think she could go to
gift
jail
is."
for this?" I
Well,
think it's
that's
quite possible.
interesting. And he goes,
I replied.
"That's true."
Then, damn it, I'm ready.
And he
Alvin said,
laughed.
"I'll have my lawyer
And I
contact
was
you if
like,
you don't mind."
for me,
I'm all for it,
that was
Alvin replied.
peace.
Yeah.
I nodded
Oh,
and
that's
stood up
good.
with the help of my cane.
Because my
Alvin
dad,
stood up with me and extended his
when I
hand,
wrote about
which I
him in
accepted.
my book,
"We'll contact you,"
now
I
he
said,
gets a
leaving his
kick
office.
out of it. But
When I got back to my hotel room, I took out the photos Alvin had given me and compared them to the images I already had.
I pushed him
Indeed,
as far
they were
as he
almost
could go.
identical. I picked up the phone and called Terry.
I saw what
"Torres,"
was at the
he
core
answered,
of
picking
him.
up the phone.
Oh, wow.
"Terry, can
Which
you be somewhere
oddly
near my
is
hotel?"
fuck you.
I asked. "I can be there in an hour," he
interesting.
replied.
Yeah.
"What's
There's
happening?"
a hostility.
"I have a small task for you.
Yeah.
You know I'm always up for a challenge,"
just
Terry
something.
replied,
So
and I
I
heard
think
the
that's
smile
at
in his
the core
voice.
of every
"Great.
narcissistic
I want you to come to my
personality.
hotel room.
Sure.
I have something to check.
They
I'm on my
can't
way,"
totally
Terry replied.
reveal
We
themselves
ended the
to
call, and I checked the
themselves.
CCTV
Right,
system at
so
my home.
you're gonna
Nothing
get
new
the
yet
fuck
since
you.
Samantha and Alan left
You
this
know.
morning. Then I called
But,
Alice.
what's the
"Yes,
correlation,
Mr. Jacobs,"
though?
she answered.
They can't
I
reveal
told her about the meeting with
themselves
Alvin
to
and heard her
themselves.
sigh in surprise. I checked,
Well,
and I can
'cause
assure
I
you that the
think they're
restraining
not
order
open
against
to
you is very
themselves
real.
about who they
But I
are
definitely
as
want
a
to talk to
dog,
Mr.
which is a
Morgan.
narcissist.
We ended the
If you
conversation after I
push
gave her
them
Alvin's
to
contact
go
information.
there,
Right.
By then, there was a knock on the door.
they're
It was
gonna
Terry.
hold out.
"What happened,
Right.
boss?"
All the
He
way.
asked when I
It's
let him
gonna
into the
come
room.
at you.
I showed him the photos
Yeah.
Alvin gave me, and he looked
But,
shocked
you
as he
know,
looked through them.
you know,
"Can you explain this?" I asked. "I've heard about such things,
as
but I've
people
never
get
seen anyone
older,
actually
and
do
I
it."
think
Terry
you-
replied,
I don't know if
comparing
you're
photographs.
seeing it 'cause
"What are you
it's
talking
not
about?" I asked.
necessarily
"Deep fakes,"
special as
Terry
that.
said.
You know,
"Essentially, someone with the
they are
right
half
skills
your
can create fake
brain.
photos and videos that are
Yes.
very difficult to
And, you
refute.
know,
In this
whatever
case,
their
it appears that whoever did this
shortcomings or
is using the same
flaws were,
background and the same
you
shapes
know,
of human bodies to create
that
fakes involving
wired
spouses.
you.
Lazy work,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Half
Do you
of
think we
it,
can prove to the
at
judge
least.
that these are fakes?"
So
I asked.
at
"Yes,"
some point you
Terry
have to
replied.
reckon with
"I know
the
several
good parts
photography
and the bad
experts who can
parts
decipher
about
these
your
images,
dad
but it would be easier
that
if we
you
had the
possess.
originals. Most likely they are digital. Okay? Take a couple from
Right?
each group and
And
see
then
what
you
you
have
can."
to say,
I
like,
told
all
him.
right, well, this,
"Anything else?"
you know, these
"Yes,
are good
I checked on
things
Williams as you requested.
from him.
He recently joined
And
Hempstead,
these are the
having
bad
moved here from New
things.
York.
And a lot of
And what's
times those
interesting
bad
is that he
things
is
will
married
kind of
and has
be
2
a
children.
struggle, and
Terry
they'll
showed me a
take you
family
down,
portrait.
and they're built
There was
to
Alan,
fuck
a
you.
beautiful
Yeah,
blonde
yeah.
and 2 pretty children, about 7
I don't
years
know if
old.
you had that same
For a lawyer,
experience.
he's
Oh, but
terribly
anyway,
stupid
my
to cheat
dad,
on
when
such
I
a
wrote
beautiful
about it in
family.
my
I
book,
said,
he
"Exactly.
was
Her
furious.
name is Rhonda.
And it
She
was
is a state
graphic.
representative, the
And it
heiress of a
was,
fairly
you
wealthy
know,
man.
and,
So
you
she's
know,
still
he
in New
was
York,
like,
and I bet they have a prenuptial agreement." I
very
said.
angry.
"And it's true," Terry confirmed. I couldn't help
didn't
but
do the
smile.
same thing you
"Oh
did,
yes,
which
Alan
was
Williams will pay dearly."
more,
"What else?" I asked. I looked
There's
into
a better
Morrison's
way to
divorce as you
phrase
asked.
it. I said,
Everything
well,
is pretty
look, it's my
straightforward,
story,
judging by the
too.
documents.
This is my
Samantha
story.
filed for
Yeah.
divorce, accusing him of
That,
cheating.
like, I
The
own
terms
the
of the prenuptial
story,
agreement
my
were met,
side of it,
and she received
Yeah.
10
as
years of
much
good
as you
alimony
do,
if she
and
did
you're
not
part of my
remarry.
story.
And Alvin was required to
Now,
pay the
you can
mortgage on the
choose,
condominium,
and I'm not
Terry
sure
said.
if I'm-
The
if
decision
I
also states that if
was
the condominium is
as,
sold, the proceeds will be divided
you
equally
know,
between the 2 parties. So he was paying for a
careful as I
mortgage
could
that
have
no
been
longer
out of
exists and
respect.
supporting someone who
Yeah.
doesn't
But
deserve
fundamentally, I
it.
didn't
Any
respect
idea where
him
the
at
money
that
is going?
point.
I asked.
So we had this
Cartwright
fight
set
on
up
the
a separate
phone.
account, and the money was automatically deducted from Morrison's salary. Terry replied, I couldn't find information about this account. Honestly, I don't know how Morrison even survived on what he had left. At least they didn't have children. I said, if I find information about the account, can you check it and find out how much money has accumulated there? Sure. But honestly, it would probably require a court order or subpoena to get the details.
$100,000.
Do what you need to do. Contact Alice if you need legal assistance. I assume you've already given her all the information you've collected.
Yes,
I conveyed everything. Terry confirmed.
That's funny.
And you're sure you've already organized surveillance of Samantha? Of course, said Terry. They're watching you too. I guess, I admitted. Honestly, I don't care. Let them waste their time and money following me.
But as they get older,
okay, it's time for me to get back to business. I'll email you everything I have at the moment.
Like when I told my mom,
great plan. I look forward to your report. I replied, shaking his hand. And
she said, how can you tell?
Terry smiled at the phrase.
Because he was always saying,
it means a lot, he said. I noticed how he walked out with extra energy in his step, and I smiled too. Terry was a good man, and I really appreciated his efforts. I sat down at my laptop and checked the video surveillance system at home, but nothing new appeared. Then he lay down on the bed, turned on the TV, and began to think about his next actions. I was annoyed that I couldn't do anything except wait for other people to finish their work. I was always the person who walked ahead of everyone, and this waiting was literally killing me. After some time, there was a knock on the door. Taking the gun and cane, I got out of bed and walked to the door. Who's there? I asked. Also Oscar Warren, answered a male voice from the other side. I looked through the people and saw him holding up his ID. Proby, is this really you? This is Special Agent Proby for you, Mr. Jacobs. Oscar responded good-naturedly. I opened the door and saw his smiling face. He was a little older than the last time I saw him, but still looked in good shape. I opened the door wider and let him inside. It's good to see you, Oscar, I said, lowering the gun. And I love you, old dog. He laughed. I hope you remember how to secure this thing. I laughed too. I think I can handle it. Looks like they hire anyone as a special agent now. I joked. Well, technically, I'm a deputy assistant special agent in the department.
But at the same time, like as I get older,
they say you're a big shot now. Yes, that's what they say. I answered, grinning. What brings you here from Fort Apache?
Like, compared to
Pat
what?
Witherspoon, Oscar said. I froze when I heard that name. I haven't heard that name for many years, I answered. You know, she was the one who turned my first wife against me. She said what awaits me if I ever cheat on Renee. She died under my care when Mona Larson pulled the tricks. And all these years I had no idea that she was Jacob Green's ex-wife. And now you are her son-in-law. I didn't know anything about it, I said. Of course, I didn't know. None of us knew her family connections then, Oscar replied. We cremated her body after the autopsy. No one even came for her remains. It's sad, isn't it? I remarked. Considering who she was involved with, all the pain and suffering she caused, no, I don't think so. As far as I understand, it was she who killed Renee, Oscar said bitterly. And I still have a hospital full of her victims, men who will likely never recover from the torture and abuse they suffered at the hands of past thugs. You were there, Mike. You've seen yours. One of them shot you, remember? I will never forget this. I answered quietly. Do you think her daughter is following in her footsteps?
There were things like that.
Don't know. She doesn't quite fit the profile.
My dad doesn't.
A lot of the old profiles don't work anymore, Mike. It's a completely different game now. They don't even call themselves en masse. They prefer terms like sister. Have you ever heard Samantha or her lawyer use that expression?
No money.
No, never.
He spent all his money on
Let me know if you hear okay, Oscar asked. Of course, I said.
Yeah, for real.
As I said, Samantha doesn't quite fit the old profile. But her lawyer, Allison Cartwright, she definitely could.
He really valued
I don't remember that name, Oscar thought. Here's what I'll do. I'll ask Wiseman and his research team to do some digging and see what they find. Is he still on the task force?
And he had
nothing. Oscar exclaimed. When he and his wife are not scaring the crap out of all sorts of tricksters. I think almost all the managers at the company where she works have their eyes on Amy. I chuckled. I've met Ron Wiseman before and seen him and his wife use their wheel of death. He even showed me some tricks with knives. To quote Mr. T, I felt sorry for the fools who tried to hit on Amy. So what's going on? Is there anything new since I talked to your boss? Oscar asked. And I told him what I had learned that morning. He became especially interested when I mentioned the photographs. It haunts me that Cartwright could have pulled this off with more than just you and Morrison, Oscar said. I'll give it to Wiseman. This clearly smacks of a crime. It might not make it to the task force level, but it will certainly send someone to jail. I'll have Wiseman look into this right away and let me know when he finds out.
It's bananas.
Thank you, Oscar. I really appreciate it. I said, what else are friends for? Oscar answered with a smile. Well, it's time for me to go back. Rita is cooking a roast, and if I don't make it in time for dinner, I won't be happy. That's right. You married the boss's daughter. I noticed that you have gained a few pounds since our last meeting. How are things going?
And it'd be like,
wonderful,
we gotta find Dad's keys.
I haven't been this happy in years.
He gave me
give her and the children my best wishes, I said. Sure, Mike, thanks, Oscar said, standing up. No, thank you, friend, I said, shaking his hand. I walked him to the door and we said goodbye. After looking at my watch, I decided to have a snack. Took my cane and went to the restaurant on the first floor. After a delicious filet mignon, I bought a cigar from a gift shop, sat by the pool with an afternoon drink, and relaxed. Returning to the room a couple of hours later, feeling a little relaxed, I decided that Samantha was already home. After washing my face, I booted up my laptop and logged into my home surveillance system. Samantha had just entered the house with Alan and Allison. So what was so important that you couldn't tell me about it in the office? Samantha asked Allison. I received a report from a private investigator. Your husband went to see Alice Hawkins this morning. Allison replied. So what? He went to a lawyer. We knew he would do this. You don't understand, Samantha. Alice is a shark, and the first thing she will do is get the restraining order lifted. And if I know her, she will want blood. There's something else. Mike spoke to your ex-husband this afternoon. Allison added. I saw Samantha's face turn white. What do you think Alvin told him? Samantha asked with clear panic in her voice. My guesstimate answer is everything, Allison said. And if your husband ties everything together, we could be in big trouble. And that's not all. My contact told me that Mike worked for the Homefront Security Task Force. A true professional. He wasn't kidding when he told your father that he killed people. She added, causing Samantha to step back. In fact, he received several medals for his work. Allison continued. I also learned from the detective that one of his old colleagues visited him today. One Oscar Warren. I don't know what they were talking about, but I can make an educated guess. Again, why is this so important? Samantha asked, still confused. If your husband has the resources of a federal agency that specializes in domestic violence, we're screwed, Allison said. Maybe now is the time to set Mike up, Alan suggested. I still have that drive. It's full of compromising evidence. Can you imagine what will happen when the authorities find out that a former federal agent has this on his computer?
Well, no, but you
Forget
know
it, Alan.
You know
Allison said. It's too late to plant anything on his hard drive. He had no access to his computer for almost 24 hours. A technical expert will notice this in a minute.
Because I was like, this special is going to come out, millions of people are going to see it.
It could work, Allison agreed. But be very careful. Make sure he can't trace it back to your computer. What about the bill?
So the way that I write jokes is like there's something real.
I'll take care of it, Allison said.
True, and then there's something silly, and then something real, and then something silly.
Too much is at stake.
So I explained to her like the ballet joke.
And if we can't subdue Mike,
we went to your ballet recital, and Mom and I are crying and crying.
One he'll never get out of.
She doesn't have it, you know.
Do you understand what I'm talking about?
No, we're crying.
Samantha nodded slowly, understanding what Allison meant.
You were so fantastic.
And you understand, Alan?
And then you said, Dad, you would say I was fantastic.
I understood everything too.
I wasn't fantastic.
These three intended to kill me if all else failed. The woman to whom I swore my love and fidelity had just agreed to my death, all for the love of money. She, more than anyone else, should have known that I did not like to lose arguments, and he certainly wasn't going to lose this one. I took out my phone and made my first call to Ryan Harper, my old friend from the FBI.
Pretty well. She goes, I like the true jokes
this is Mike Jacobs. I said,
and I go, well, the good thing is the special ends on
I was just thinking about you, Ryan replied.
I go,
what exclusive do you have?
Silly, true,
conspiracy to commit murder and extortion, for starters.
And I think that that's the important part. I think the audience knows which parts are silly and which parts are true.
Absolutely, I replied.
And so
I have it on video.
I'm hoping that reads.
Send it now, and I'll call Sheriff
I'm hoping that reads, but I'm also like,
I'm concerned. You have my email address, right?
Well, concerned in
He's
the
on my
sense
contact
that, like,
list. Thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate it. I said as I prepared the video to send. After formatting the email, I clicked send.
Yeah,
I see him. Ryan responded moments later. I heard the muffled sounds of a video playing on his side.
But I also think
I can't believe Samantha would do this to you.
The joke
Wait, let me call the sheriff.
For example,
I heard him talking to someone on another phone and then came back to me. Okay, Sheriff Pratt is already sending people to your house. What's going on? Ryan listened quietly as I told him everything that had happened over the past couple of days.
I go, Una, what do you think when
he whistled
say
softly.
stuff like that?
This is just cold-blooded,
waste of my time. I go, that's
so
the meanest thing anyone's ever said to me, and I know Bill Burr.
Are you safe? Is it necessary to send someone to protect you? Ryan asked, concerned. I told him my location and assured him that everything would be okay.
Well,
it doesn't look like a federal case.
It's a waste of my time.
Let me know. Do you understand, Mike?
She takes a shot at me.
Thanks, Ryan. Very grateful. We ended the call, and I looked back at the laptop where the three conspirators were still discussing their plans. What about your ex-husband? Should we remove it too? Alan asked. No, Allison replied sharply.
Well, I guess the question is
it would look too suspicious if Samantha's two husbands were killed so quickly, one after the other. Tomorrow, I will begin transferring the money we collected from him and others to an offshore account.
Well, that's the concern, but I think, fortunately, I wouldn't have done it about, like,
so I thought there are other victims. This is getting more and more interesting. It looks like you've done this before, Alan said. Allison chuckled before answering. Let's just say this isn't exactly my first rodeo. I watched them chat for about half an hour until I noticed the reflection of the flashing lights outside. I smiled, realizing that their little talk was about to take an unexpected turn. A few moments later, I heard a knock on the door. Sheriff, open the door. A male voice said. Samantha, Allison, and Alan exchanged puzzled looks. You better open the door. Allison told Samantha. Samantha obeyed Allison's instructions and opened the door.
I'm literally,
Samantha asked.
And I told her
Samantha Jacobs asked the sheriff's deputy.
I'm not talking about you for the next 10 years. This is Deputy Jones. Can we come in? Journey and
sure, Deputy. Samantha said.
This is your story.
Two deputies entered the living room. A man and a woman.
That's the tricky
Alan Williams,
thing.
Allison Cartwright, asked Smith.
The lesson
Over
with
rejoices.
My dad and also
we are here to arrest you three. You are under arrest. Turn around, hands behind your back.
Arrested when they say to you,
Allison asked. The warrants are for conspiracy to commit murder and extortion. Samantha, Allison, and Alan looked at each other in confusion as Smith read them their rights.
Which is a real question.
Shut up, Alan.
Comedy or this.
Don't say anything. Yeah, sure. No one understood.
You kind of
your husband must have bugged the house, Alan said to Samantha. Did you know about this?
No, I didn't. I had a girlfriend who I wrote
Shut up, both of you, Allison ordered. Don't say anything. When we're taken to the county jail, I'll hire a lawyer. You have the right to remain silent, so use it. The deputies finished their work and escorted the three conspirators out of my house.
That taught me a lot.
The video ended when the door closed. I picked up the phone and made a second call, this time to Alice Hawkins, my lawyer.
But this is my story.
Why are you calling me after office hours? I just wanted to let you know that Samantha and her two accomplices have been arrested, I replied.
So then what?
Arrested? For what? For conspiracy to commit murder and extortion. I have a video of them discussing their plan, I said.
Are you?
Oh my God, Alice explained. Can you send me a copy of this video?
I'm
already doing that, I replied, preparing the video to email. Well, that will certainly help when I go to Judge Banks about the restraining order, Alice said. Will it be Judge Kenneth Banks? I clarified. The same one. Why are you asking? Do you know him? I did an intervention for him about 10 years ago, I explained. Intervention is a term we have used on the task force to help targeted husbands. Before he became a judge, Alice clarified.
You can live in other people.
Yes, I confirmed. Could this be perceived as a conflict of interest? Have you done anything for him since then?
Alice asked. No one's one for one, so like don't think twice, for example.
Most likely, he won't even remember your name.
This is about
She reassured
Mike doing improv.
Maybe, although it's unlikely that he forgot that intervention.
I wasn't really an improviser.
Don't worry about it. If he asks, I'll tell him. Otherwise, we just won't say anything. Alice assured me. When are you going to see him?
Did you ever see Don't Think Twice?
Tomorrow afternoon. At 13 o'clock. I also have a motion to unfreeze your accounts and demand that Samantha pay back at least 35% of everything she took.
I think so.
I thought you would like it because it is about
hopefully I'll have good news for you by tomorrow night.
What happens when someone gets,
try to get a good night's sleep, Mike. We'll talk tomorrow. We ended the call, and I made my third call that evening. This time to Wilson Langley, Samantha's boss, who was also Allison and Alan's boss. Since I was responsible for the security of his business, I had his personal number in my contact list. I have only called him on this number once since signing the contract. Langley, the older man, answered after the first ring. Mr. Langley, this is Mike Jacobs from Miss. How are you, sir? I enjoyed a nice dinner with my friends, he said. I guess from the noise in the background that he was probably at the country club where my father often dined. What can I do for you, Mr. Jacobs? Is there a security problem with my building? As far as I know, there are no security problems, Mr. Langley. But there is a problem with your three employees. Oh, what's the problem?
But we don't really know
they were arrested.
If we're right for the job.
They are now being taken to the county jail.
Looking for.
What? Langley explained. I heard him cover the phone and say something to his interlocutors.
It's like, like some guy gets elevated because of you, and you think like you deserve that. But perhaps the person that was giving that job to somebody had a reason.
Samantha, your executive assistant, has filed for divorce.
And then you could say like, well, that's fucked up. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Alan Williams and Allison Cartwright discussing my possible murder. There's also evidence of conspiracy to commit extortion.
It's funny, like doing that.
Given our business relationship, I felt it was my duty to inform you of this. Damn it, Langley swore. You say you have proof?
2 years, 3 years.
I have a video filmed in my own home. Moreover, I suspect there is more to this story, and I intend to get to the bottom of it. I said calmly. Do you suspect me or my company of any illegal activity? Langley asked quietly. I have no direct evidence of this at this time, Mr. Langley. But all
you're
three
saying.
suspects work for you, I replied in an even tone. Yes, it is, at least for now. But Mr. Jacobs, everyone has the right to defense. They will get their right to trial just like everyone else. If your accusations are true, I will fire them. Will this suit you? He clarified. Yes, that will be enough, Mr. Langley.
Your
I
sense
agreed.
of
Fine, and thank you for letting me know, Mr. Jacobs.
Or self-righteousness.
You're welcome, I replied, ending the
conversation. You might be
there was one more call left. I looked at the information Terry had given me about Alan Williams.
You might not deserve that job at all.
I dialed Alan and Rhonda Williams' home in New York City, hoping his wife would answer. After 2 rings, I heard a woman's voice. The Williams residence, she said. I'd like to talk to Rhonda Williams, please.
It wasn't for me.
It's me, the woman replied.
Totally.
Mrs. Williams, my name is Mike Jacobs. I have some bad news for you regarding your husband, Alan. I heard her sigh heavily before answering. What has my husband done this time? She asked quietly. Your husband slept with my wife, I said. Do you have ironclad proof of this? I have a video of them together.
You believe you deserve it.
Rhonda hissed.
How can you, if this happens again, it's all over between us.
There's one more thing, Mrs. Williams, I said. Please call me Rhonda, she replied.
And it's interesting, I was watching...
Yes, Rhonda, and call me Mike. Your husband was arrested on charges of conspiracy to commit murder and extortion. I think more charges may be brought against him soon. He and his 2 accomplices are already being taken to the county jail, I said. Oh my God, Rhonda whispered sadly. I'm really sorry about all this. It's not your fault, Rhonda. He made his choice. Now he'll have to live with it. Yes, sure, you're right. You say you have proof. Can you send them to me, please?
And one of them
Of course, I replied. Rhonda dictated her personal email address, and I added it to my contacts. I'll send you everything I have as soon as we finish talking. Once again, I'm sorry.
And then go back
like you said, Mike, it's not your fault. Alan made this bet himself. Now he must lie in it. Thank you for letting me know. Rhonda replied sadly. I felt sorry for her and her children. I understood the media storm they were facing because of Alan's actions. We ended the conversation, and I kept my promise. I sent her all the videos of Alan with a short note of condolences. I had one more call left, and I knew that this conversation would be the hardest. Taking the phone, I called Dad, who answered after the second ring.
Sam has been arrested, I
said quietly.
It's just like,
yes, I know.
It was kind of
like called
nothing.
me from the county jail.
Right.
Dad replied. I heard the sadness in his voice.
Well, you know what's funny?
She says she's charged with conspiracy to commit murder. This is true. I'm afraid so, Dad. I replied. I have it on video. I can't believe she could agree to this. Dad sighed. She agreed, Dad. In any case, it is now a matter for the authorities. Who else knows about this? Asked the Pope. Her boss, Wilson Langley. I just told her. I also spoke to Alan Williams' wife in New York and with my lawyer. You know this is going to start a media dump, the Pope said. Most likely, I agree. That usually gets attention. Dad laughed quietly. We can handle it, the Pope finally said.
Just on a
Thanks for letting me know.
Make $50 million.
I replied. I felt sorry for the old man because he was not to blame for what his daughter did. Well, I have to go, Dad finally said. Let me know if you hear anything.
What happened to that guy?
Okay, Dad. Good evening. Say hi to Mom, I replied before ending the call.
There's a lot of that.
I looked through the glass doors leading to the balcony and saw that the sun had already set. The city lights flickered outside the windows. I felt slightly relieved by the events of that day and wanted to do something. I wanted to leave the room and get some air because the feeling of cabin fever was starting to drive me crazy. I went downstairs, bought a cigar, and sat by the pool, enjoying the cool night air, drink and smoke. A couple of hours later, I returned to my room, crawled under the covers, and slept like a baby. I woke up later than usual, took a shower, shaved, and had breakfast. The day was free, except for waiting for news from Alice. So I decided to take a walk around the city center and then return to my room. Almost immediately after returning to the room, there was a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I took the gun and looked through the peephole. There stood 2 men in cheap suits with police badges on their belts.
Plumbers.
Who's there? I
don't know. Show me the numbers.
We need to talk to you.
I want to see the numbers.
Show your
ID.
And
also show me the ratio of comics versus how many working comics there are versus the ones that
raise their IDs. After reading them, I learned that in front of me were Detectives Johnson and Caraway. I met Johnson a couple of years ago at a charity event in support of widows and orphans of police officers killed in action. I have not met Caraway personally, but I have heard about his reputation. I decided to take a risk and trust them. After holstering the weapon, I said, just a second. Opening the door, I looked around the corridor in both directions, then invited them inside. Just in case, let me tell you, there is a loaded weapon in the room. I warned. It's holstered and safe. We expected this, Mr. Jacobs. One of the detectives said, we know that you are a former federal agent, and we also know that you have a permit to carry a weapon. We have several questions regarding your wife and her colleagues.
I was just angry.
Come in. Do you want some coffee? Yes, black, please, Detective Johnson said. Caraway agreed, so I poured them both a cup of black coffee. Taking a careful sip, they winced. Damn, is this what you call coffee? Caraway asked. That's what it says on the package. I replied. For my taste,
like
quite
true
normal.
rage versus
yes, you are definitely
rage.
a former federal agent. Sure. Johnson chuckled.
Yeah,
I invited them to sit down and sat on the bed myself. So how can I help the city's best police officers? I asked. We're here on a case against your wife, Samantha Jacobs, her lawyer, Allison Cartwright, and her colleague, Alan Williams.
Even if you watch old Hicks
I thought so.
I
answered half
his
jokingly.
anger was,
what do you want to know?
Utterly
we understand that Mrs. Jacobs has filed for divorce on charges of adultery. But she claims this is all a big misunderstanding, and that he reported the crime out of revenge. Caraway said, looking at his notes. I guess you haven't seen the video. I replied. They both looked at me in surprise. Obviously, they were not shown the video. So no, we are not aware of any video. Johnson admitted. Then take a look, gentlemen. I'd offer you popcorn, but I don't have any. I joked. I turned on video on my laptop and showed them. They looked on with shocked faces as the 3 conspirators coolly discussed killing me if I did not agree to participate in their plan. They also noted that Alan wanted to download something onto my computer. Any guesses what's on that flash drive that Williams had? Johnson asked. Most likely prohibited videos. I replied. Since he had the flash drive on him at the time of his arrest, you will likely find it in the county jail along with the rest of his belongings.
I
We'll
think
have to check that out.
Caraway told
Johnson, who nodded in agreement. Can you provide us with copies of all the videos you have?
And I think like one of the things that annoyed me early on was that you were kind of
everything I had, including the recording of the conversation with Cartwright at Luigi's restaurant. I handed the flash drive back to Detective Johnson. When will the arraignment take place? I asked. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
It didn't have a lot of depth necessarily.
By the way, the prosecutor asked us to give you an invitation. We might need to ask you a few questions.
We're emulating the people we admire.
Just one piece of advice. You should take a closer look at Cartwright. I suspect this is not the first time she has taken such action.
He goes,
why do you think that? Caraway asked. I spoke to Alvin Morrison, Samantha's first husband. Cartwright pulled the same trick on her. If you want, I'll give you his contact information.
I have TV spots.
I wrote down Alvin's information and showed the detectives the photographs that Allison used in both divorce cases.
Because he admired Attell.
Indeed,
There's a fucking generation of people who admired Attell.
We'll contact this Morrison guy.
There's a lot of Attells running around.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Even now,
glad to help.
I would say that.
And one more thing, Mr. Jacobs,
people who
just
are
some friendly advice.
But I would
we
say
know about your reputation. You are no longer a federal agent. Pointing a gun at a lawman is not the smartest idea, no matter how justified it may seem.
And then there's tons
we'll take care of this matter. Do you understand? Roger, Detective Johnson, I said with a smile. We shook hands and I walked them to the door. When it was time for lunch, I ordered a sandwich from my room and watched TV while I ate. Later that day, I received a call from Alice. She said that Judge Banks not only lifted the restraining order, but also lifted the lien on my accounts and ordered Samantha to return 30% of the stolen money. In addition, he has reported Cartwright to the bar and the Attorney General's office for her unethical actions. Alice added. You did a good job, I said. This is just the beginning, cowboy. Alice replied with a slight laugh. Tomorrow, I will file a response and divorce papers. The real fun is about to begin. What now? I asked. I will handle the refund from Samantha. Just follow the list I gave you. This will take you the rest of the day. Plan to return to the house tomorrow morning. Actually, I would like to return home today, I admitted. I need to change the locks and get Samantha out of my house. I'm supposed to be at her hearing tomorrow morning. Will you be there? Only if you need it, she replied. If any of them get bail, I'll need a restraining order, I said. According to my information, the prosecutor intends to insist on detention pending trial, Alice explained. But it's difficult to predict the judge's actions. Okay, I'll be there if anything goes wrong. Thank you, I replied. After finishing the conversation with Alice, I called Dad. Hey, Guy, how's life? He asked in his usual rude style. It gets better, Dad. Thanks for asking. Listen, the restraining order has been lifted, and I'm going home today. Can you send someone to remove Samantha's things?
Early.
Yes, I can, he replied. Do you think she'll be released on bail soon? Not from what I've heard, but with some judges you never know. That's for sure, Dad muttered. What time do you need the truck? I think around 4:30. It won't take long to put her things in trash bags.
Yeah, I wonder if that's...
Dad laughed quietly.
I find that I'm more aware of my influences now.
Learn from the best, Dad,
when I
replied in the same
stuff of mine,
yes, that's for sure.
Weird,
and don't forget about it. We both laughed.
I never...
Okay, I'll send about 4 people. Let me know how the hearing goes. Definitely, I promise. After finishing the call, I went to the bank to make the necessary changes to my accounts. Then I stopped by the office to sort things out in the HR department. While I was there, I also went to see my boss, Jack Iverson.
You're not there yet.
He asked. They are moving, I replied. I lifted the ban on approaching and unfrozen bank accounts. Samantha and her accomplices were arrested last night. Arrested? Jack was surprised. Yes, conspiracy to commit murder, extortion. I'd heard that there may be more charges. The hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning.
I know if I do.
And the prosecutor wants you there?
There have been beats from my
perhaps he will ask me some questions. I don't know for sure yet.
Oh, interesting.
I hope everything turns out well. Jack said. Are you coming home today? That's my plan.
I've become more clear about my homages.
Definitely. I replied before leaving the office.
Where they
After
come
that,
from
I returned to the hotel, checked out, and went home.
At the end of End Times
My fortress is a refuge from all this worldly storm. I drove into the garage, closed the door behind me, and headed towards the kitchen entrance.
I knew in my mind,
I took out my pistol. I didn't expect any unpleasant surprises, but I wasn't going to take any risks. Carefully stepping inside, I turned off the security alarm. The house was dark and too quiet, which was a little annoying. The only sound was the soft ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the living room. I carefully inspected the house to make sure no one else was inside. After making sure the house was safe, I holstered my weapon and went upstairs to unpack my things. Then I took a shower and changed into more comfortable clothes. At exactly 4 o'clock, I heard a truck drive into the entrance. Through the window, I saw 3 men come out and head towards the door. I let them in and handed them a box of large 30-gallon trash bags before leading them to Samantha's bedroom. One of the men began putting her clothes into bags. Another was emptying dresser drawers and collecting her toiletries. And the third was working on her furniture and other things.
With me?
While they were busy, I opened the door to my office and checked everything inside. Everything was fine, so I turned on the stereo system installed throughout the house. Soon the sounds of classic Jethro Tull filled the space. Yes, I'm home again. I later called the recommended lock replacement service. Realizing that it was already late, I offered the master an additional payment for urgency. He reluctantly agreed and said he would come. The last thing I wanted was for Samantha or her accomplices to break into the house.
No, I think he's funny, but I don't know.
Half an hour later, the locksmith arrived and started changing the locks. A couple of hours later, the 3 men in the boat had sent reported that they were finished. By this time, the master had managed to change all the locks on the doors and went home with a small amount of cash in his pockets. I walked through the house with the workers to make sure they had taken everything that belonged to Samantha. What about the photographs on the walls? Asked the man who apparently was in charge. He pointed to photographs of Samantha and I smiling at each other at different points in our lives. No need, I replied. I'll need some kindling for the fireplace tonight. They laughed. By the way, could you do one more favor for me? I asked. Which one, Mr. Jacobs? First of all, call me Mike. And secondly, could you please remove the mattress from the master bedroom? What do you want to do with it? The chief clarified. You can throw it away, burn it, take it to a landfill, whatever you want. I don't need him anymore. I decided I'd rather spend the night in the guest room and order a new mattress tomorrow. I was not going to sleep on what Samantha had defiled with her infidelity. I understand, Mike, he said. Guys, help me with this. They removed the old mattress, carried it down the stairs, and tossed it unceremoniously into the back of the truck. I thanked them for their work and gave each one $100 bill. Well, they did a good job and deserved a small bonus. We said goodbye, and I watched them go until they left, taking Samantha's things with them. When I returned inside, the house seemed empty where Samantha's things had once been. There were now empty spaces. Well, I thought, this too will pass.
Was my director.
Hungry and tired, I ordered lasagna from Luigi's restaurant. The lady who took the order said delivery would take about an hour. This suited me. I had time to rest a little. With a fresh cup of coffee from my Keurig coffee maker, I settled into my favorite chair and turned on the TV to watch the news. A few minutes later, the phone rang. Ron Weissman's name flashed on the screen. Intrigued, I answered the call. Mike Jacobs, old friend. How are you? Ron began cheerfully. Just got home. I threw Samantha's things out, and now I'm resting. What do you have for me? Well, you'll be glad to know that I haven't found any connections between your wife and the old MS Group, even though she's Pat Witherspoon's daughter. But I found something about a lawyer, Allison Cartwright. What exactly? I asked, tensed. That was 8 or 9 years ago. At that time, she went by a different name, Ellen Griswold, worked in upstate New York. According to Witherspoon's notes, she had disagreements with the group over the harsher measures they took against cheaters. She was not embarrassed to punish men, but she believed that some methods were too radical. When the group began to move into the political sphere, she decided to leave. Mona Larson allowed her to leave, which is honestly weird. After that, she changed her name and had plastic surgery. But that's not all. One of Larson's memos addressed the issue of eliminating Griswold. But this did not happen because the memo was written several days before Larson was eliminated, and the murder contract was never completed.
Oh yeah, no.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Ron replied. Although she left the organization, she still retained the idea of punishing traitors.
So let me
ask you, she has worked at Hempstead Law Firm for the past 8 years, focusing on divorce cases. As far as I found out, she represented only women. Now I am studying these cases in more detail, but according to preliminary data, almost 90% of them are related to adultery.
It's interesting.
How many cases did she handle during this time?
I'm not sure I do.
Becoming more and more interested. On average, she took on about 80 cases a year. Do the math yourself. 80 cases a year for 8 years, 640 cases, Ron said, plus or minus. But that's not all. I found her name associated with about 500 bank accounts across the country. I'm still looking into it, but it looks like she has about $25 million in total.
Yeah.
Yeah, and guess what? These accounts were opened by her for the women she represented. Samantha has such an account, opened when she divorced her first husband. Have you reported this to the district attorney? I asked. Yes, I just spoke to him. Our own divorce department will look into this too. Divorce investigation department. Oh, exactly. It was created after you left. It's run by your old friend Ray Ochoa. I think in a day or two one of his people will come see you. Thanks for the warning, I said. This really explained a lot. I couldn't help but wonder what the dog would do with this information.
But I can explain why.
Not yet, Ron replied. I'm still collecting and processing data. This may take time. She had 8 years to organize it all. But there's something I don't understand, I told Ron. Why didn't Larson use the old capsule with the poison on it? Isn't this how she always got rid of problems? Yes, it was like that, at least towards the end. But Griswold left the organization before Larson began using it widely, so she didn't get the implant.
Because it makes sense.
Or at least that's what I understood from Witherspoon's notes. Do you think Samantha knew about Cartwright's past? I asked. I doubted Mike, but I'm pretty sure she knew what Cartwright was doing now. She simply had to. You're probably right. Anything else? I feel like I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg called Cartwright Mike. I will learn a lot more over the next 24, 48 hours.
I have a line.
Okay, thanks, Ron. I appreciate it.
I've been doing this a long time.
I asked. So it's everything is fine with us. Thank you for asking.
I'm pretty happy.
Her knife throwing skills improve with every new executive her company hires. Ron joked. I laughed.
I find that sometimes like at parties,
but the number of complaints of sexual harassment has dropped to almost zero. Ron added, half jokingly. We ended the conversation and I turned back to the TV. My dinner soon arrived and I enjoyed my lasagna while watching an old John Wayne movie. After that, I drank and smoked a cigar. I guess this is the moment when guys in my situation indulge in philosophical reflections about life, love, and the meaning of the universe, which, as I remember from the old movie, is 42, or something like that. Yes, I'm sad and hurt, but I'm not one to think about such things. I'm just the facts, man, type of person. So here are the facts. Samantha cheated on me and then tried to make me look like a villain, going so far as to contact a lawyer who has no ethics. Then she tried to steal my home and most of my assets based on fabricated evidence. To make matters worse, she agreed with Allison's proposal to kill me if I didn't follow their lead. Also, I found out that she did the same thing to another man. She succeeded then, and I suppose she thought she could do it with me, but she was very mistaken. You see, I don't like losing arguments. I think I could do a background check on her before we get married. But when you're in love with a woman, such thoughts don't even cross your mind. And yes, I was in love with Samantha once. I trusted her perhaps too much. But now it doesn't matter anymore. Samantha made a huge mistake.
That's why I always tell young comics, I go like,
perhaps I thought there really was something of her biological mother in her. I remember telling Allison that they had declared war. The first part of my counteroffensive is complete. The restraining order has been lifted. The freeze on my accounts has been lifted. And I am back where I belong in my home. Samantha has been banished from my personal kingdom and is now in prison. I'm going to do everything I can to keep her there for as long as possible, along with her 2 accomplices. Tomorrow morning, I thought, the second phase of the counteroffensive will begin. I'll go to her hearing, and if the dog calls me to testify, I will happily tell the court everything I know. After I finished smoking my cigar, I went upstairs, undressed, and crawled under the covers in my guest bedroom. It felt good to be home again, in my own bed, even in the guest room. But the house seemed empty without Samantha. I threw this thought aside and decided to approach it as an intervention, that is, putting emotions aside. Tomorrow is a new day, but from now on, I will be in control, and I don't like losing arguments. The next morning, I got up, did my business, got dressed, and poured myself a cup of coffee before heading to the courthouse. I wanted to see the 3 conspirators brought into the courtroom. To my surprise, Alice, my lawyer, appeared in the room. How are you holding up, Mike? She asked. Better, now that I'm back in the house. This is good. I wanted to come to support you, just in case. Alice said. Thank you, I appreciate it, I replied with a smile. The double doors swung open, and a line of people in orange prison garb was led into the courtroom. Among them were Allison, Samantha, and Alan, who looked extremely unhappy. Well, that serves them right, I thought. Samantha's hair was a mess, and there were dark circles under her eyes. Allison didn't look much better. Everyone stand up, commanded the large bailiff. We stood up as Judge Wilfred T. Stone entered the courtroom wearing a black robe and carrying folders under his arm. The judge nodded, sitting down in his seat, which was the signal for the bailiff. Sit down, he ordered. The judge started at one end of the chain, and I noticed that he was quite stern with those standing in front of him. The word collateral seemed to be something foreign to him. However, before he got to Samantha and her accomplices, two people entered the room, a man in an elegant suit and a woman whom I had not seen for 10 years. They went to the district attorney. I recognized the man. It was federal prosecutor Ronald Sharp. I already had the opportunity to work with him when I served. The woman turned out to be Julie Bascom, who during my service worked in the Denver branch of the task force. I have collaborated with her several times and have been quite impressed. She was also a lovely brunette, and I was pleasantly surprised at how well she had held up over the years. While Ronald was talking to the doc, Julie walked up to me, and I couldn't help but smile as she extended her hand to me. Mike, good to see you again, Julie said with a smile. Excuse me, Special Agent Julie Bascom, HFSTF. She introduced herself to Alice.
It's funny how similar that joke. That's a good parallel development example.
Of course, said Alice. We left the court before the judge could throw us out. Ron was still talking to the doc, and it was clear that he was unhappy. What's happening? I asked Julie. New circumstances have arisen. Julie answered. At the moment, federal authorities are taking control of the case against Allison Cartwright, Alan Williams, and her wife. So this is a task force matter, I asked. Not really, she replied. The FBI and several other agencies are involved in the investigation. But we also have an interest in this matter. I talked to Ron Weisman earlier, and he said there was nothing but a task force. What has changed? I asked, confused. After your conversation, he discovered something alarming. He handed over the materials to us, and we took matters into our own hands. I think you can guess what happened next. It turned out that Allison was running her own little version of the old mask, and Samantha helped her with this.
It's funny that there are people
what is Williams' role in all this? I asked. He basically brought up passengers, organized power support for the dirty work, Julie said. So what now? Alice asked. Federal marshals are ready to take all three into custody. They will be transported to Washington, where a federal grand jury will take over their cases. Julie replied. What are they accused of? I asked. In a whole bunch of crimes: racketeering, extortion, money laundering, several conspiracy charges, including conspiracies to murder you. But the most important charge is murder. It turns out that Allison was eliminating those who refused to cooperate, and apparently Samantha knew all about it. In general, the matter is quite confusing. And Williams, I asked, the evidence we have collected indicates that he orchestrated the accidents that resulted in the deaths of two men, Julie said. And it looks like there's a third person dead, thanks to Williams. The U.S. attorney is seeking the death penalty for all three.
What about
Can
your
Mrs.
mom?
Jacobs be seen before they are taken away? Alice asked.
Well, like I said,
have divorce papers that need to be given to her. I'll see what I can do. Julie replied and turned to her. By the way, Mike, I don't need to return to headquarters for another couple of days. Maybe we can meet. I took her hint. We always got along well before and were mutually attracted. Although the task force strictly prohibited personal relationships between agents. I think I owe you dinner, I said. That's right, Julie replied with a smile. How about tonight, Luigi? They have excellent lasagna. Do you still remember how much I love lasagna? She asked. Of course I remember, I said. Julie smiled and wrote something down on the back of the card and handed it to me. Here is my personal number and address. House 630. I'll be there, I replied, putting the business card in my pocket. I think we better go back to the hall, Alice said. We returned to our seats. Julie walked up to the two large federal marshals and spoke to them quietly. They looked at each other, shrugged their shoulders, and nodded. I just spoke with the marshals. They said you could talk to Samantha before they take her away. Julie whispered as she returned to us. I thanked her, and then the meeting at the judge's bench ended. Judge Stone struck his gavel and said, "Detainees Jacobs, Cartwright, and Williams, you must surrender to federal marshals who will transport you to Washington, D.C., where you will be held pending the outcome of a federal grand jury." He nodded to the bailiff, who separated the trio from the others. The marshals immediately handcuffed them and led them away, nodding to Julie. "Come on," Julie said, standing up. Alice and I followed her and the marshals to a small room at the back of the courtroom. 5 minutes, said one of the marshals. Allison and Alan looked at the floor in silence, their hands cupped behind their backs. "That's enough for us," Alice answered. "Thank you." We walked inside to find Samantha at the table, her hands handcuffed to a metal bar on the table. Her colleague from Hampstead sat next to her.
Well, I guess
Samantha
if you
looked up as we
lean
entered.
into, if
"Hi,
you're a
Samantha,"
believer
I said.
and you know
"How
you're
do you like your little
flawed
adventure?"
and
"Go
you're
to hell," she answered
imperfect
quietly.
and you
I
use
grinned back.
Jesus
"Not
to
today, Samantha,
relieve you
and never
of
again."
that,
"What do you
that
want?"
there must be
asked the
some
man sitting next to her.
acceptance
"You must be her
of who
lawyer,"
you are
Alice said.
if you have that
"Yes, John
relationship
Ashcroft,
with Jesus.
Hempstead Law Group." "Excellent,
Yeah,
Mr. Ashcroft.
that's
I'm Alice Hawkins, Mr. Jacobs' lawyer, and I'm here to serve your client with divorce papers." "Do what you have to," John replied dryly. Alice turned to Samantha and placed the papers on the table. "Samantha Jacobs, you are officially notified," Alice said. "Yes, of course," Samantha answered indifferently. John picked up the papers and began looking through them. "This is my client's response to the outrageous and illegal lawsuit that your client filed based on completely fabricated evidence provided by an unethical lawyer who is now charged with numerous felonies, including extortion and conspiracy to murder. I asked the court to dismiss her claim. I advise your client to sign the documents now. Everything is in full accordance with the marriage contract that she signed before the wedding. In addition, there is the issue of funds stolen by your client from a joint account. These funds must be returned immediately, or I will have to charge your client with theft. Here's a copy of the court order for the return of these funds if you haven't seen it yet," Alice said, placing another piece of paper on the table. John picked up the document and began to read. "Mrs. Jacobs has power of attorney to transfer her affairs to me, so I will take care of this as soon as
that's
possible.
what my
Miss
mom is
Hawkins.
like, and
Anything else?
I'd
He asked.
like to think
Yes,
I picked
I
up a
intervened,
little bit
turning
of
to
that from her.
Samantha.
She's
"Why,
kind.
Sam? What the hell happened?" Samantha looked up at me, and I swore she looked like a completely different person than the woman I married. She shrugged. "Because I could," she said.
I think that's,
"So what? So what?
probably true.
Is that all you can say after all the years we've been together?"
Sometimes it's
"Yes,"
a little
Samantha
late.
answered indifferently. "I think yes." I nodded, considering her words. At that moment, I realized that whatever love I had left for her was now gone. I think this is the end of our conversation, Mr. Jacobs.
I don't have
my client has nothing more to say,
like,
John said.
Do
you realize that she faces the death penalty?
I have to reckon with the fact,
yes,
like,
I know that,
like,
Mr. Jacobs,
Marco,
he replied.
I
looked at Samantha and noticed a mocking smirk on her face as if she didn't care. Well, I thought, then I don't care either.
I find
Good luck,
that,
I said, motioning for Alice to leave.
Like, my
we returned to the hallway where I ran into Allison. There was also a mocking smile on her face. What's so funny? I asked her, wait, Mike Jacobs, everything will change soon. When the sisterhood takes over, there won't be any room left for dinosaurs like you, she snorted.
Literally,
I looked at Julie, who also caught Allison's words. Well, from my point of view, there won't be any room left for you either. Like I said, I don't like losing arguments, I replied. The door to the room opened and Samantha walked out with her lawyer and the marshal. John gave the divorce papers to Alice. They're signed, he said quietly. The marshal witnessed the signature, and I certified the documents.
I'm out of my mind.
Take them to court and send me a copy, please. It will be done, Alice said, checking the papers. Thank you.
And if you
put the documents in her case, and we
that's
parted
right.
ways. Alice went to file papers, and Julie returned to Ron's courtroom, but not before reminding me about our dinner. I left the courthouse and went to get something to eat, grabbing a burger. After eating, I stopped at a mattress store and ordered a new adjustable mattress. When I got home, I called my father to tell him everything that happened. What would happen to her, asked my father-in-law. There was sadness and disappointment in his voice. No matter what Samantha did, I respected that old man. He deserved to know the whole truth, but I was afraid it might be too much of a blow for him. Everything is fine. I can handle whatever it is, he said. The U.S. attorney is seeking the death penalty, I replied. I heard Dad sob quietly, trying to pull himself together.
Yeah?
Do you think they'll get their way? He asked, his voice trembling. Don't know. I haven't seen the evidence yet, but from what I've been told, it's bad for all of them. She's my only daughter, you know, Dad said quietly. I know. Does she have a good lawyer? These feds can literally destroy a person.
I'm good with you.
I think her company took care of that, I replied. Be honest, is this what you want for her? Dad asked.
I'm good.
Honestly, no. I want her to leave my life and be punished for all her crimes, but I don't want her to die.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you for this, son, Dad said. What are you going to do?
Nothing. I got nothing.
I plan to move on, Dad. Most likely, I will be called to testify.
No, I just feel like whenever...
And then how it turns out. As far as I can see, Samantha has something to answer for, but the jury will decide that.
Show,
I understand, he said.
People
we talked some more and our conversation ended on a relatively positive note.
Did I?
After that, I called Luigi's restaurant and made a reservation for 2 for the evening. I didn't know what to expect from my date with Julie.
You guys all
we met many
hang out
years
with
ago
each
when I was a federal agent, but nothing happened between us then because we were bound by the rules of the working group. More than once I wondered what it would be like to be in bed with her. I arrived at Julie's hotel and called to say I was waiting outside her room. When she opened the door, I was stunned. Julie's long, wavy hair flowed down her bare shoulders. She was wearing a short black dress that perfectly accentuated her figure. It was the first time I had seen her in something other than a pantsuit, and I was amazed by her beauty.
Yeah,
the
cat
cat swallowed his tongue.
And the phone call
Julie
was
asked
nice.
with a mischievous smile.
But no, but I felt
You're incredibly
bad
beautiful, I muttered,
because
feeling like a teenager on a first date. Thank you, Julie replied.
Was like,
and I must say that you look very attractive
and
too.
then, like, I
offered her my right hand since I needed my left for the cane.
And then you
she accepted my hand and we walked to my car.
Now I got to
Being the
really
gentleman I
deal
am,
with it.
I even opened the
And
door
by the
for her.
time that
Very nice
happens,
car,
I
Mike,
feel bad
Julie
about
said
what
as I
I've
got
done.
behind the wheel. Thank you.
And that's
privileges of the position. Wait until you hear what the audio system sounds like.
From my father.
Are you still in love with Jethro Tull? She asked. Do you even need to ask such a stupid question? I answered, listen to this.
And then
I turned on the music and it started playing thick as a brick. This is one of my favorite songs. I knew Julie loved Tull too.
Well, you hurt someone's feelings.
The last time we saw each other. You sure know the way to my heart, Mike, Julie exclaimed. This is one of my favorites. I have plenty of this stuff.
But it also puts me in a position to where, like,
we arrived at Luigi's and I happily escorted Julie through the door. Table for 2, Jacobs. I told the girl at the front desk. This way, please, she said with a smile after checking my reservation. We followed her to our table, and I was glad that it was not the table where Samantha's lawyer had recently caught me. I also noticed the envious glances of the men in the restaurant as they watched Julie walk next to me on her arm. In my opinion, she was the most beautiful woman in this place. And tonight she was with me. I pulled out a chair for her and sat opposite her, placing my cane next to the wall. The waitress came over, put down 2 glasses of water, and took our order. You walk very confidently, even with a cane, Julie said as the waitress left. Thank you. I've gotten used to it over the years, I replied. Does this still bother you? I know they worked on your leg a lot. Sometimes when it's very cold or raining outside, and I still can't put full weight on this knee, I admitted. Julie was genuinely interested, but I decided to change the subject. How are you? Last time we saw each other, you were in Denver.
I forget what the line
yes, I was. Then I was transferred to Seattle. I stayed there for 3 years. Then they sent me to Miami. It was a wild task. And then I was invited to DU, and I've been there ever since.
At a certain point,
what was it like working with Ray? I asked. I have known Ray Ochoa for a long time and have always spoken highly of him. I love working with Ray, Julie exclaimed. I especially like that he doesn't like to manage everything down to the smallest detail. I once worked with such a boss, it was terribly infuriating. I chuckled. I know what you mean. So what is this to you? I don't remember anything like this when I was in the service.
No, I do live in it.
Force Investigation Department, Julie explained. It's quite new. It was created after the incident with President Pierce. Essentially, we are investigating extreme cases of domestic violence and adultery to see if there is any indication that mass remnants or imitators are involved. It probably keeps you busy, I remarked. Unfortunately, yes, much more than I would like, she answered sadly. Just curious how many of your cases.
And then how I was wrong.
And with positive results, Julie guessed. Not so much. On average, about 2%. But this is still more than we would like. I must say, your case was quite interesting. About why? None of the usual signs were there, but the fact that your soon-to-be ex-wife is the daughter of perhaps the most notorious field agent to work for MS, and that her lawyer was also a member of the group, quickly caught our attention. Of course, I can't tell you too much because the case has already been presented to a federal grand jury, but I can tell you that Weissman and his research team have discovered quite a lot, and it looks really bad for all 3 of them. Your man Torres also found something that helped a lot. I'm glad he was able to help. As I understand it, his findings have already been transferred to the relevant authorities.
Even with the dynamic, and Nick's another guy, dude. I had to stop following him on
national security and all that. So please don't put too much pressure on him.
Nick Kroll?
I won't. Terry is a good person. I trust him. But thanks for letting me know about it. You're welcome.
He's different. I think he's got
what's all this talk about a new way and sisterhood? I asked, remembering the conversation I had with Allison and Samantha earlier. You noticed that? Julie replied.
Well, maybe it's
after the old corporate structure of MS was destroyed, the organization transformed and went global. They became even more radical and less restrained in things like murder. A county council member was recently killed in Texas as part of an experiment.
That's the thing about him.
We still don't know if these terms are new names for the group or just common names they use. Perhaps
so I had to stop.
The point is that they are much more dangerous than they were when you served. You need to be very careful. Caution is my middle name. I joked, and Julie laughed.
Like, it's just like so much love around him.
We both ordered
really does
lasagna. One of my favorite dishes.
It just kept coming up. I'm like, I just
meats and mushrooms. We ate with
Too
pleasure.
much love.
Dipping breadsticks into the remaining sauce. This is absolutely amazing, Julie
And
explained.
I think if I
This is
can
one of
be
my favorite
honest with
dishes.
you in
You can
terms of
literally
like
overeat from it.
why
I can understand why.
It's
She
all
agreed.
me, dude.
By the way, there's a nice dance club right next door. When we're done here, would you like to drink something and dance for a few calories? I suggested. Mike Jacobs, if I didn't know better, I think you were trying to seduce me. Julie laughed.
And I'm not very good at
I feigned
gratitude.
indignation. Yes, you are. But honestly, I'd love to have a drink and a dance. Or two dances.
Is that I feel that people are doing better than me.
I'll admit, I'm limited to just slow dancing these days. I joke.
They're being
Julie
received
smiled
better than
even
me.
wider, and I noticed
It's
her adorable
fundamental
dimples.
insecurity.
How do you deal with this?
We're
She
sitting
asked,
in my
genuinely
house.
interested. I learned a long time ago to improvise, to adapt, to overcome difficulties.
I'm doing everything we should be doing.
Then I wouldn't mind a couple slow
Especially
dances
I'm
with you,
acting
Mike,
in movies.
Julie said in a
There's still
seductive
part
tone
of me
that held
that's sort
plenty
of
of promise.
like,
The waitress brought the bill,
Birbiglia
and I handed her my credit card.
That one
A few minutes later, she returned with a check.
I don't even know what
and we
that
went to a
is, but
nearby
it's
club,
not
which,
real.
fortunately,
And
was
I'm
not too
sorry
crowded.
that I act
When Julie
on
walked
it.
in, all heads turned in her direction. It seemed that I even heard the men in the club whispering as they assessed my companion. None of them, of course, had any idea what Julie was capable of if someone decided to cross the line. We found a table and ordered drinks. When the band started playing a slow song, I asked Julie to dance, and she happily agreed. We headed to the dance floor, and I wrapped my right arm around her while holding the cane in my left. Julie pressed herself against me, and we moved smoothly and slowly across the dance floor. That was my secret, slow and steady. You move amazingly easily, Mike, Julie whispered softly as I held her close. I inhaled the scent of her hair as she rested her head on my shoulder. Where there is a will, there is a way, I whispered back. We danced to two slow songs and then returned to our table. That was nice, Julie said quietly as we sat down. I never thought of you as a dancer.
I started to
well,
analyze
a lot has changed over the years. Personally, I found it very helpful during therapy, I replied. Did you come here often with Samantha? I tried to do it at least once a week, but to be honest, the last few months have been pretty hard.
You
she became cold and distant. At the time, I thought it was due to stress at work. Now I know that wasn't the case, I said. Enough about my problems. How are you doing? Have you met Mr. Perfect? Not really. Julie laughed. I don't know. Maybe this work affects people like us. We see so much pain and suffering. Not the best environment for a relationship.
That's interesting.
I understand.
Yeah, I find that like a lot of times I'm jealous of
Julie said thoughtfully.
I wouldn't even be right for. They have nothing to do with
and never looked back. Sorry to hear that.
It's really a fundamental
Julie snorted.
insecurity.
I'm just glad I found out about it before it was too late.
A lot.
So what are your plans for the future?
Still,
I'm going to stay in the working group. I think I'll retire in a couple of years. Maybe I'll buy an apartment on the beach and get a cat. She chuckled. Great comment, right? I guess. Julie said sadly. I noticed the sadness on her face and decided to change the subject to lighten her mood a little. How about we get out of here and listen to some music? Do you still have the Toll collection? She asked. Of course, I replied. Since we last saw each other, I even replenished it. So what are you waiting for? Please take me to your chambers, kind sir, Julie said with a smile, wrapping her arms around my shoulders.
Gina, it's so funny because
from a book I read online, she replied. Well, are we going or what? Yes, madam, I said, taking the cane. After we paid, we left the club and headed to my house. When we got there, I walked Julie around the house, showing her every room. The tour ended in my office, where I kept my collection of Jethro Tull vinyl records. I've always believed that no digital recording can compare to the music on old records. I let Julie choose the album, and she surprised me by choosing A Passion Play. I turned on the stereo, put a record on the turntable, and walked back into the living room, where we sat on the couch, each with a glass of wine in our hands. When the first side of the album was finished, I turned it over to the second side. Julie couldn't help but laugh as she listened. The story of the hare who lost his spectacles. She continued to giggle even after the story ended. And what makes you so happy? I asked, hearing her uncontrollable laughter. I don't know why, but this story always makes me laugh.
Special's not going to drop, and then 3 days later you're like, I can't find it. Is it on the homepage?
She ran her hand over my chest, looking intently into my eyes. Mike, have you ever thought? She didn't have time to finish. Our lips met. When we finally broke apart, Julie was looking me straight in the eye. Yes, I've thought about it many times, I whispered. She wrapped her arms around me and kissed me again. But this time she whispered in my ear, make love to me, Mike, please. I didn't need any more convincing. And I did as she asked. We stayed on the couch for a while. Julie was the first to break the silence. It seems the song is over. I listened and realized that she was right. There was a rush along the Fulham Road into the ever-passion play. You're right, I replied. It looks like this is our song now.
And so I never really had a home until Netflix came along, and now I'm just like, oh, this is perfect.
And she kissed me softly on the cheek.
There's no
I stood up with difficulty,
commercials,
leaning on my cane, and went into the office to change the record. I chose 5, bursting out, and returned to the living room. As I sat down on the couch, Julie noticed the scar on my thigh. Are you okay? I asked, seeing how she looked at him thoughtfully. I'm more than fine, she replied. It's just, I've never seen your scar. It's worse than I thought. He looks much better now than before, I said. If he bothers you, I can put on trousers.
It's interesting when you start to build a fan base and you see them out there.
This doesn't bother me at all. I have a few scars myself.
How are you?
At first glance, Julie looked completely flawless, but upon closer inspection, I noticed several thin reddish lines on her side. It happened in Seattle. She explained, "You should have seen the person who did this."
They're good
she smirked,
people,
but then asked, "Does this bother you?"
Some of them look much
Not at
more
all, I answered honestly. You are perfect the way you are. I paused a moment before asking the next question. Would you like to stay the night? Her smile lit up the whole room. I thought you would never propose, she said, hugging me. We went upstairs, leaving our clothes in the living room. I hope you don't mind if we use the guest bedroom. I ordered a new mattress for the master bedroom that hasn't arrived yet. That explains the spring mattress, Julie said, laughing. I thought maybe you had some kind of strange fetish. We both laughed.
Thanks, man.
We settled into the guest bedroom, cuddling. I really enjoyed my time with you. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do this, Julie said. Is it true? I'm glad you liked it.
There you go.
I really liked it myself.
Me and Mike.
To be honest, I wish it didn't end.
Again,
I replied. Julie smiled and kissed me. This morning, I was awakened by the smell of frying bacon.
For a minute,
After finishing my business in the bathroom, I put on my casual clothes and went downstairs. Julie was in the kitchen wearing only one of my shirts.
For Father's
Good morning,
Day, we posted a new WTF collection for full Maron listeners.
Almost ready.
This one featuring dads. It's got stories about fatherhood from Matt Damon, Bill Burr, Jack Gallagher, John Glazer, Hank Azaria, Ron Funches, and a recent visit with Barry Maron.
Thank you, Julie said. Although it's quite difficult to spoil an egg.
Penny.
Perhaps, I replied. Or maybe the whole point is that you prepared them, although you could not have done so.
When did you have that?
Thank you for last night, Julie said with a slight sadness in her voice. I really needed this. I think we both needed this, I said. It was the best night in a very long time. I wanted it to never end. But I understand that you have work to do. Everything is fine. Yes, I need to finish something. But Fort Apache isn't that far away.
Right?
We always have days off. Plus, I'll be retiring in a couple of years. This will give us time to get to know each other better. What do you think? I like it, I replied. Last night, I felt a connection that I haven't felt for a long time with Samantha. And I want to make sure that this was not a chance meeting, like two ships diverging at sea. I agree, Julie said. I want you to know, I'm not used to spending nights like yesterday. I've been drawn to you for a long time.
Was Barney
and meeting
her
you too.
husband?
Am I hearing some kind of but in your voice?
Was he a character?
I don't want to be your rebound, Mike. You're just starting a divorce. You have a long way to go. Believe me, I've seen what people go through in these situations. It's not easy, but I'll be there if you need me.
I love this picture.
Thank you, I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. Why don't we go slow? I can come to you on weekends if you want. If you need to talk, call at any time. There's no need to rush. And no, if you suddenly ask, I don't have another man. I realized that Julie was right and thought about her words for a few seconds before answering. Okay, I said, you are always a welcome guest. And of course, I want to see you on weekends. Do you realize that I may have to work some weekends? Oh, I know that very well. I went through this myself, remember? Julie laughed. I'll never forget it, she said. But I need to get dressed. I have a meeting with the federal prosecutor this afternoon, and I don't think he'll appreciate it if I come like this, she added, pointing to my shirt on her body. I love seeing you like this, especially at my table, I joked, making Julie smile. How naughty you are, she reproached me.
To get that collection and new bonus episodes twice a week, sign up for the full Maron. To sign up, go to the link in the episode description or go to WTFpod.com and click on WTF Plus. And a reminder before we go, this podcast is hosted by Acast. And now
what do you want for dinner today? I asked. Surprise me, Julie said with a smile. Tomorrow morning, I have to fly back to Fort Apache. Do you think you can handle another night with me?
I love you, John.
I think I can handle it, I joked. I'll just have to tell my other girls that I have a date. Of course, she grinned, punching me lightly on the arm. I'll call you when I'm free, okay? Great. By the way, you can take this, I said, handing her the house key. I also handed over the security code card. This is the code for the alarm. Once you open the door, you have just under a minute to enter the code. Thanks for this, Julie said, taking the card. She gave me another kiss full of promises, then got out of the car and closed the door. I waited for her to come into the hotel and then went to the office. What, today we have a relaxed dress code and no one told me? Jack joked as I walked into the office. I laughed. You seem to be in a good mood, he continued. Everything is fine. Yes, everything is fine, I replied. In many ways. By the way, have you seen Terry? I need to talk to him. No, but he's probably around here somewhere. I'll call him, no big deal. How was the hearing? Better than I expected. Samantha and her accomplices are now in custody and heading to Washington. It appears they are being investigated by a federal grand jury. Interesting, said Jack. So are you back in business now? I think everything has worked out, but I have a date tonight. Date? You're moving fast, Mike. Who is she? Her name is Julie Bascom. We serve together. She's going to retire in a couple of years. Well, enjoy your date, and don't do anything I wouldn't do, Jack laughed. Yes, of course, I said, laughing, and went to my office. When I got there, I called Terry. Hey, boss, I was just about to come see you. Everything is fine, I asked. Yes, I just wanted to give you my final report. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be with you in 5 minutes, Terry said, and ended the call. 4 minutes later, he entered the office with a rather thick folder and handed it to me. Wow, you've been really busy, I said, feeling the weight of the folder. Did you give a copy to the feds and Miss Hawkins? Yes, confirmed Terry. That Special Agent Bascom especially liked it. You already know most of what's in the report. I have a complete file on Williams and details of Morrison's divorce from Samantha. It wasn't pretty. Did you send a copy to Williams' wife in New York? I asked. Not yet, but I will if you want. Please do it. Consider it done, Terry replied. What about photographs? I spoke with our audio-video specialist. He believes they are prints of digital images edited in Photoshop. But without the original digital files, he can't say more. That makes sense, I agreed. Anyway, everything is here. Everything I could find in a couple of days. Hope this helps. Yes, Terry, it helps, I said. Great job. Thank you. I owe you a lot. Always happy to help, boss, Terry said with a smile. Well, it's time for me to get back to business. If you need anything, let me know. Definitely, I replied. We shook hands and I watched him leave. I spent the next couple of hours going through the materials Terry had prepared and began to wonder if I even knew Samantha. Finally, I closed the folder and threw it on the table. Now, this was just a formality because the case was already in the hands of the grand jury. I finished the rest of my work and realized it was time for lunch. After heading out to get a sandwich, I started planning the dinner I wanted to make for Julie. I wanted to do something special for her. At first, I thought about taking her to a new steakhouse, but I changed my mind and decided to grill the steak at home. After lunch, I returned to the office and visited Jack. If you don't mind, Jack, I'd like to leave a little early. I need to stop at the store on the way home. Yes, of course, Mike, Jack said. Everything is under control here. Thanks, Jack, I appreciate it, I replied and waved goodbye to him. I stopped at the store and bought a couple of thick steaks, potatoes, and everything I needed. I grabbed a bottle of wine and headed home. While I was preparing the meat, my phone rang, and it was Julie. Hey, G-Man, she said when I answered. It was nice to hear that old nickname, and it made me smile. Hello to you too, I replied. How is the day? Interesting, Julie said. I'm calling to find out what you have planned for dinner. I'm cooking a couple of steaks now. I think I'll serve them with baked potatoes and green beans. What do